This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
No, cut that. Keep that. Someday it's going to be worth something.
Russ Wakelin.
You put me in an ATST with frickin' Wookiees attacking me and whatnot?
Now you're talking. And John Demaris in the third chair.
This is a bad matchup for me.
With contributions from Total Fangirl.
Vampires do not sparkle.
And our loyal listeners.
Are you crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at the speed of a Satixis Raider in advanced deployment and sporting desperate pace. Today's edition is brought to you by our fine patrons over at Patreon, keeping the lights on, one donation at a time. Today we're thanking Malcolm, Tom, Gordon, and W. I'm Keekly McNardigan, your host. Today our panelists are Russ, Wrath of Ages Wakelin, and special guest John Dark Champion Demaris, Privateer Press Fanboy Supreme, one of the movers and shakers behind Muse On Mini's, podcaster extraordinaire, and purveyor of fine tokens, templates, and squirrel-based tile-laying games everywhere. Let's begin. Issue number 1. In any fantastical setting, there are many routes to give your readers and gamers the background of the world in which they venture, whether it's tales of questionable veracity, learned NPCs waxing philosophical throughout, or, of course, the discovery of ancient tomes. Question. What is the name of the book written by enumerator Geovastus? Harmonic Enforcer Russ.
Gears and their ilk.
Aerogenesis John.
No idea.
Which makes you both wrong! A concise overview of the history of the Maiden of Gears. I will give Russ 0.05% of one credit for having the word gears. Issue number 2. Whenever creating an adaptation of one work of art or another, changes have to be made. Whether something just won't translate or can't be fit in or can't meet the required viewer rating, changes happen. Sometimes there's no conceivable reason for those changes, however, and sometimes they just ruin everything. Question. In the 2009 film X-Men Origins Wolverine, what terrible crime was perpetrated against the character Wade Winston Wilson? Radioactive Man Russ.
Man, I forget.
Justin Hammer John.
They screwed up Deadpool big time.
We're going to give you half credit on that, but you didn't get the right one. Well, when you take away the mouth of a character whose nickname is the Merc with a Mouth, well, yes, it was Deadpool, and he may never recover. Issue number 3. Lock and Load is one of the most anticipated gaming conventions in the U.S., with hundreds upon hundreds of the Privateer Press faithful making the trek from around the country and around the world. And, of course, the term Lock and Load refers to getting a weapon ready to fire, although the exact meaning is hotly debated from movie producers to firearms experts. Question. If believing the World War II version of the explanation, what type of rifle was being locked and then loaded, or loaded and then locked as the case may be, when the order was first given? Dan Rather Russ.
A carbine.
George Jones John.
A carbine?
Wrong! Totally 100% and without any partial credit whatsoever. The M1 Garand rifle. You two fools. Issue number 4. There are many ways to lead an army, whether you're charging forward at the front of a screaming horde or calmly directing things from the back and beyond. They've all been tried and most of them have worked at least once or twice down through the ages. Question. Where are the war room chambers from whence the Cadoran High Command lead their forces to be found? Man of War Kovnik Wakelin.
Oh, man. John's going to get this one. I'm going to embarrass myself, but I don't remember.
Kovnik Markov Demaris.
Usually underground, right?
Wrong! The said war room chambers are located within the Stasikov Palace in Kursk.
Of course.
Sad. There goes the... Of course. That's it for now. Thanks for listening and good night.
This episode of the D6 generation is brought to you by Lone Wolf Development. Take your game to the next level.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And by Audible. Try the service, get a free book, and support the show. All by visiting audibletrial.com/D6G. Hello!
Hello.
Hey! And welcome to episode 170, Craig.
170.
of the D6 generation. I'm Russ Wakeland.
I'm Craig Gallant.
And I'm John Demaris.
Hey,
John Demaris!
John, the musing man himself.
Muse on Minis.
So, John, please, we're just so delighted to have John on the show. A hardcore Warmachine aficionado. Is that a fair description, John?
I love the game. I do 100%.
And also podcaster extraordinary. How long have you guys been doing Muse on Minis over there now?
We've been doing the podcast for 4 years. We have
Nice.
225 episodes in the can, I think.
Nice. Now, you guys are, what, bi-weekly?
No, we're weekly. We started out bi-weekly,
Yeah.
but yeah. We went to 3 times a week for a little while. I strongly recommend not doing that.
Yes. That's crazy talk. See, we record once a week, but we only produce every other week.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so John, well, great. Well, welcome to the show. We'd love to have you on here. And since John was here, John went to Lock and Load.
Yes,
So
we did.
we want to talk about
We've never
that.
had an eyes inside Lock and Load
Right.
before.
We have boots on the ground, if you will.
That's right.
So John's going to tell us all about that in one segment. And then, of course, since John's here also, and John likes Warmachine and Hordes, and I like Warmachines and Hordes, and
we haven't talked about Warmachine and Hordes in a very long time.
Right. Even Craig agreed we could talk about Warmachine and Hordes. So
I thought it was a great idea.
we're going to do the state of Warmachine and Hordes, talk about what we're liking about it, how it's changed over the years, what makes it still work, blah, 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 all that stuff, right?
Yep.
All right. But before we get to all that, we should make a couple of announcements. First, just recorded a Lost Chapters.
Yes, we did.
Met
Another
John.
good one, if I do say so
It was
myself.
pretty good. We met John in Dunkin' Donuts. Thanks for coming over there, John. Appreciate it.
Donuts were great.
And John, do you
Come-
remember
Go ahead.
what we talked about in Dunkin' Donuts?
I do. Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
We're doing all this pop culture.
Yeah, we totally spoiled the heck out of the latest season of Game of Thrones. So
We spoiled it to death.
we did. We did indeed. So if you're interested in doing and listening to that episode,
Bloody spoiled death that ruined it because it was a good guy till the very end.
are you spoiling things again right now
No.
on the main show? Okay, good.
Just saying.
So,
much.
Craig, if someone would like to listen to the Lost Chapters, what is the best way they could do that, sir?
Well, best is really a subjective term, Russ, but if the best way for us is definitely for you to become a patron of the show, following in the illustrious footsteps of the patrons of the Renaissance. Go to patreon.com, look for the D6 generation, suffer through the video that Russ and I made,
Right.
establish firmly in your mind why we do radio.
Yes.
And then decide what level of support makes sense to you. 50 cents makes perfect sense to some folks. At the $2 per episode level, you get access to the entire library of Lost Chapters, which again, to remind you, at the behest of those listeners who are patrons and don't think we push this hard enough, that is where we let our hair down. Well, Russ lets his hair down. Mine doesn't go anywhere. We bring our guests on. John was with us, just like we just said, and we just talk and chat in a much less guarded format. Not that we're guarded here, but we're more relaxed. It's more casual. And we talk about the kind of stuff that's on our mind or that we think is interesting, the kind of stuff that you talk about with your friends after game night, if you go out for a drink or whatever after game night and you're just sitting around chewing the fat, if you will.
Right.
So that is a great way to get it, and that works awesome for us and seems to work well for the patrons. So let's call that the best way ever.
Yeah. So
Ever.
Also, it is only 30 days, Craig, until
30
Gen Con.
days.
30 days to Gen Con as we record
Where did
this.
my summer go, Russ?
Well, it's early this year. It's in July. And so here's the thing. So we are doing our annual Play by Mob at Gen Con again. It is already very well sold. We're really excited about this. Now, there's still some seats left. And here's the thing. There's plenty of seats. You can probably show up, but Gen Con likes to get the little tickets back, and it kind of tells them how popular the event is.
Right.
So please do sign up for our event. There's plenty of seats, but just sign up to get a ticket and turn the ticket in there. It would be very helpful. So we'd really appreciate that.
There's a couple things that we do that it really with just a little effort on your part, the listeners, it makes our job easier for us to bring you more.
Yes.
One of those things is when you hear something on our show, a product that you like or a company that you like, whether it's a sponsor or just somebody that we like, because we talk up everybody we enjoy.
Yep.
Let them know where you heard it from. They know about us then. that gives us more of a footprint out there, which allows us to bring in more guests and prize support and stuff like that, which is all to the best for you guys. Another way that we can ask for a little bit back is if you guys go through the channels at Gen Con and get that ticket and turn it in. That way we can prove to Gen Con that we've got 10 to 15 folks that are willing to, sit down and listen to us talk. I'm kidding. It's at least 30 or 40. But seriously, it gives us podcasting is odd in that there's almost no way to prove to anybody that you've got any kind of footprint.
Right.
So there's these ways that you, with a little bit of help on your part, that we can establish that our numbers are what the computer tells us they are, or at least close. And so we really, really, really appreciate those of you who go that extra mile. Patreon is awesome and it's great, and it's for those people who want to go that extra mile. But these are some of the things, just about anybody can do that kind of gives us a little kick and makes it more clear what's going on.
And it's 100% free. It's 9:00 on Thursday.
100% free.
And it's in the Westin Capitol 3, so plenty of room. We got room for 120 people. I think we'll have a good crowd, so I'm very excited. We've already got over 80 tickets sold, which is fantastic. But please jump in there and get on in. We really appreciate that. And also, if you'd like to help others, so that's how you can help us. But if you'd like to help others, there is really no better way than Extra Life, right, Craig?
Extra Life is phenomenal. I'm wearing my Extra Life 2015 T-shirt right now.
See? And so Craig and I have all signed up over there at Extra Life. And if you'd like to help support our Extra Life efforts, you can go ahead and click on either Craig or myself. Or if you're going to do your own Extra Life thing, you can join the D6 Generation team.
Yeah, our goal this year is to make that team awesome and have the team raise money all around the world for any hospital that's near you that's part of this network. You raise the money for your own community, and we get to again show that the D6 Generation is a force to be reckoned with.
Right. Extra Life, extra-life.org is where you can go for all the information. You can search for Craig's name or my name or the D6 Generation.
Yes.
All right. So, cool. So what's the time now for, Craig?
Roughly roundabout time for Achievements in Gaming.
Oh.
Hello?
Oh, the achievement noise is late. Sorry about that.
I was like, oh my God, the echo effect was so cool. I knocked everybody off the internet.
It's on. Some days it's not. Oh, it's on a weird... Anyway, I'll get that fixed. I'm going to bang it around a little bit. I'll get it corrected up here just a minute with a wrench. So, John, as you may know, this is part of the show we talk about what games we've been playing lately. What have you been playing lately, sir?
I have been playing a lot of Star Realms. Have you guys played that? It's a quick and dirty game.
I have played it. It's very fun, yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy that quite a bit. My son and I, Brendan, he's 12. We started an Imperial Assault campaign, but we're very, very, very early into it.
Nice.
They accuse me of making the scenarios impossible, but I think we were playing some of the rules wrong. So.
Oh, well, that could be. Now, you just started it. Is it just you and your son, or is it your whole family, or who's playing?
We've got a couple of my friends and a couple of his friends.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's kind of exciting. Actually, it's friends of mine and their son, and who's good friends with Brendan, so it works out pretty good.
All right.
Very nice.
Let's see. What else have I been playing? I've been playing a lot of Heroes of the Storm.
Yep. Oh,
when I say it's not really go ahead.
That's more of a video game, right? But
I was going to say that's not. It is a video. It's 100% a video game. I wouldn't necessarily say a lot. I actually have been spending a lot of time. A lot of game time has been spending getting all the Reckoning releases created for our templates and widget store. So that's where most of my time has gone.
Got it. So how are you liking Heroes of the Storm? That's sort of like.
And I think that's it.
How are you liking Heroes of the Storm? That's sort of like Blizzard's version of a MOBA, right?
Yep. It's just like Dota 2 or League of Legends. It's great for people like me. It's very much approachable. So I tried to play League of Legends a little bit, and I played Dota, I think, once, and it was way above what I'm capable of being old.
Yeah.
So, So I play the HOTS. The games are a little quicker. Instead of like 30 to 40-minute games, they tend to be 20 to 25 minutes. Again, it's when you're an old fogey like me, it's kind of nice, and to keep up with the youngsters a little bit.
Yeah, I like it. So cool. I've played it with my daughters. They liked it too. So we played around with it a little bit. They like what's the other game we were playing? Smite. They like Smite better. So Smite Beta just came out for Xbox, which is the same sort of game, but it's The characters are all different gods from different eras, so you can play a Greek god versus a Norse god versus an Egyptian god, and they seem to like that a little better than the Heroes game from Blizzard. But Blizzard's game is pretty cool. I did like it too.
Yeah.
I played a little bit. Cool.
I'm gonna look for that. Smite. That sounds cool.
Smite, check it out. There's an Xbox beta version you get into for free, and there's also the full version's on PC, so you can grab it. It's free to play, like all those ones are. Cool. All right, good. Did you play any Warmachine lately, or taking a break?
Oh no, I play Warmachine all the time. So actually, that's so not.
It doesn't even count. It's like breathing, right? It's just like
yeah. I don't.
And there were 30 games
so.
of Warmachine too, right? Okay.
Yep. I forgot. I don't even know why I forgot to bring those up. So, as a matter of fact, interestingly enough, I had house guests. I had one from. I think he's living in Texas now, but he's from China originally, and I had another house guest from Australia, and they came here to play some Warmachine, so that was cool.
Nice. Now, does your son play also?
He does not. He's avoided it.
Have you tried? Oh no.
Yeah, I've offered to teach him, but I don't try to pressure him into those things. So he's more of a digital kind of kid.
Yep.
Like he kind of looks at the analog stuff and goes, "Yeah, it kind of looks like fun, but it looks like a lot of work." So,
all right, cool, very cool. So just to give people an idea, in the last 2 weeks, how many games of Warmachine have you played?
Me, probably only. Let's see, 2 weeks does not encompass lock and load, right?
Right.
So,
No.
I would say 4 or 5 is all.
Okay, that's fair. That's a pretty meaty number. That's good.
Still a lot.
That's good.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, more about that later. Okay, Craig, what have you been playing lately?
Well, I haven't been playing a whole heck of a lot, but what I did do was finish the Imperial Assault campaign.
Ooh, nice.
So that was huge, because, sometimes in the dark moments of doing a campaign, you wonder if you'll ever even be able to finish. But, the Nerd Herders guys, 3 out of the 4 now that there's 4 of them over there, but Ian and Dave and Matt was the Imperial Overlord, of course, and I've talked at great length about Matt and playing with Matt and how hard it is. We did our last 2 games. They were the last 2 missions, the actual missions of the campaign. We had finished all the side missions and everything. They were very fun. They were skin of our teeth. I don't know if Matt had actually listened to the Lost Chapter. I mean, the Did You Ever Notice? And went easy on us. I don't know what he did, but it was a much closer game. The way it works is every mission affects the next mission, so our end mission will not be your end mission, and even if it is, it may not be the same structure as our mission, so I'm not spoiling anything. Really, when I tell you that, you didn't anticipate Darth Vader at the end. So we were like, yeah, going for it. One last room.
It's the Vader.
There's Darth Vader. Great. The Dark Lord of the Sith. And not only that, he's not the normal Darth Vader. He's like this uber Darth Vader with 10 extra wounds, and he doesn't activate as normal. He gets basically a half activation every time a hero activates.
Wow.
And one of his half activations is a move and attack option.
Nice. Now, is this because Matt kicked your butt all campaign and had all these bonuses?
I don't want to say how it happened because that might give you an idea. Because there are ways for you to, I don't want anybody to anticipate ahead of time what their end is going to be. It would spoil it for me to give too much information. I don't think it didn't have a lot, it's very linear. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he beat our butts in a bunch, in the end, it was actually almost exactly 50-50 mission-wise.
All right.
I think he might have won 2 more missions than we did. So it felt like we were getting our butts kicked, and I'm sure it sounded like we were getting our butts kicked, but in fact, it was more of an even matchup, at least by the record. But it was awesome. It was super, super fun. It really completely reinvigorated our interest in the campaign to the point where I was like, hey guys, I'm going to buy the supplement when it comes out in June. And they were all like, hey, we want to do it. So, it was, I don't know if it, although a lot of it was, we want to do it as long as Matt's a player and not the Imperial Overlord. So, we had a blast. It was awesome. It ended up being, Dave as the Jedi Junior and myself as the Bothan Sniper were the last 2 alive against just a wave of stormtroopers, as if that's not enough, and Darth Vader, and there was an elite Trandoshan locked in like a closet with us that we had to kill before we could even go to the door with Darth Vader behind it.
Wow.
I tweeted a picture of what those last moments looked like before we opened the door, because we were like, well, technically, in this scenario, Darth Vader has no ability to open a door. So we could just walk away and the entire Star Wars history will be different because Darth Vader will be locked in a bunker somewhere. But we knew that wasn't the intention. So we opened it. The Wookiee, Ian took the Wookiee, made an end run and opened the last door before we could back him up. So it was him and the girl bounty hunter, and they were trapped on one side of the door, and the junior Jedi and my Bothan were trapped on the other side of the door. So they got wiped out. They managed to do a few wounds to Darth Vader. We cleaned up the Trandoshan, and then when we were as strong as we were going to get, we went back in there, and when all was said and done, we had Darth Vader down to 3 wounds.
Wow.
So from 28 down to 3.
That's pretty good.
And okay, that's it for what I'm going to say. I'm just going to say one more thing about this this iteration of Darth Vader. So you're trying to kill Darth Vader. Remember, he has 2 heavy armor dice, which is a minimum of 1 wound block and up to 3. He gets to re-roll one of those 2.
Yes, he does.
And in this iteration, he gets to spend 2 threat for 2 automatic blocks.
Yeah.
So he's blocking up to 8 wounds every attack.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was
Sounds hard.
Oh, it was brutal. We all thought we're like, well, that's dumb. That's stupid. There's not even any point to do this. And then, I mean, it was a nail biter. We had him right down. I mean, we were using every special ability, every weapon we had. It was really, really cool. Very nice way to end the campaign. My hat's off to, FFG. I think the game balance for some of those side missions maybe is a little off. I think any mission where you're going to get a reward for one side or the other, whether it's the Imperial player playing for like a Darth Vader option or the Rebel players playing for one of their, like the Chewbacca or the Han Solo option. Those are really, really hard, which I understand. But then there are some of the regular side missions that I think might be a little wacky. But the core campaign is really solid, and that last mission was a blast. And Matt explains to us the other possibilities that might have happened, and they all sounded awesome.
Good. Well, I'm glad the final mission was worth it. It was a good climax.
Yeah, it 100% made it feel like it was totally worth it.
Nice.
And then instead of game night this week, I went to New York City once again for my spring theater trip with the kids. And we stopped in Boston for lunch. And this year, walking through Faneuil Hall, it was awesome. Faneuil Hall now has this thing that's called the Faneuil Hall Marketplace Board Game Station.
Ooh.
Which is like this outdoor area where there's lots of chessboards, some checkers, and then some Connect 4, and then a giant wheeled treasure chest of other games. The only sort of board game or gamer board game they had there was Settlers of Catan. But I'm sure they're like building up their library. So we had a blast. I played Connect 4 with my son, who hated it, and then I played Battleship with my friend's 17-year-old son. He crushed me. It was a little sad, but we had a blast. And then in New York, I'll talk about New York when I get to other. So that's it for me. Russ,
cool.
You have a relatively extensive list of board games.
Well, I haven't made it out much, but last time we got quite a few games in. I got to play the Witcher board game, so I've been digging the Witcher.
A lot
video
of the Witcher going around lately.
Yeah, so I'm digging the video game. Was reading the books, got into the whole world. So I decided I wanted to get the recently released Fantasy Flight board game set in the Witcher universe. And what's neat about it is you all play various heroes from the books and games, but it's not co-op. So you're trying to become, which is actually pretty consistent because all of his friends. All of Geralt's friends are constantly running their own agendas anyway, and they're friends. But it's like, how are you going to screw me this time? Like in the video game and the board and the stories. So they've got that element in the board game where you can assist your friends to get them more victory points. But when you do, you yourself get victory points. And but basically, you're trying to be the most famous person at the end to get the most fame points. So it's definitely not cooperative, but it really captures the feeling of the game and the world. I really enjoyed it. I only played half a game because the venue closed when we were getting done. We were playing it at the bar there, but really liked it. I can't wait to play it again. The Witcher board game looks like it was a lot of fun, and the theme, the miniatures are great. They're all nice sculpts, and the cards, of course, and the artwork are fantastic because it's Fantasy Flight. Also, a game that's getting a lot of play in our group lately is Castles of Mad King Ludwig.
Yes.
And this is sort of Each player is trying to build their own castle. And I'm really digging this game. I love the theme of it because building a castle. And I also like the mechanics of it because what happens is each round, one player sets the market price of the various rooms that are on that can be bought. And the trick is you want to set rooms to be expensive, but you want people to still buy them because the round that you set the prices of the rooms, that's where you get all your money. So the round that you set the rooms up, everybody who buys a room, you get all that money. So you want to set them in a way you get the maximum value, but you don't want to set them too high so that players all buy some rooms so you get some money for next round. It's a neat mechanic where you're actually really trying to, it's a little bit of poker element where you're trying to guess, is he really going to pay that much for this? I really like the game a lot. Also played another round of Zia Legends of a Drift System. Randy Brown is way too good at this game, first, right there. Second of all, we really got into combat this time. So remember, Craig, when we reviewed the game, one of our guests recommended one of the rules I got wrong, which is you could combine weapons fire. I didn't realize this. And so we're all doing it this time. And man, there was mass destruction, ship blowing up everywhere. I think the merchant NPC died no less than 10 times. It was hilarious. He was being hunted like a dog. So I had a lot of fun with that. Zia is still a fantastic game. Also played Forbidden Island again for the first time in a long time. I was hanging out at Myriad, and a couple of the guys were there, and we just played Forbidden Island real quick. Great little fun co-op game. I still like that little game. Great little game. And we got a demo game sent to us by the manufacturer there, Heebie-Jeebies. Actually, Nicole got this one. And this is a great game. It's a very simple game. It's just a bunch of cards. Yep. And the premise is that you are dealt... You get a board. So each round, a player is one board that gets passed around with 4 slots in it. And you are dealt 4 of these cards, and each of these cards have a thing on it that's supposed to creep you out. So one card might be, there's a spider crawling up your leg. Okay. Another card might be, the person next to you is picking their nose. And another card might be, there's a hair in your soup. Or whatever. And then everybody else at the table has to and the cards all go in these like slots on the board, numbered 1 through 4. Everybody else has tokens in front of them, and they're going to lock in the token they think is the thing that grosses you out the most, the person who has the board in front of them. And it was great because playing with my family, my oldest daughter, she got the spider crawling up her leg card, and she literally went, and started freaking out at the table, which kind of gave it away, which is hilarious. So, Heebie-Jeebies, I don't know about the replay value because once you've gone through the decks after a while, but some of the ideas in there are really, really funny. And it's really pretty hilarious, and it is fun as a family fun party game. Heebie-Jeebies. I would definitely check that one out. And Craig, I literally jumped for joy. So I ordered this on Amazon because I wasn't sure when it was coming out. Yeah. And I'm going to be traveling, and I ordered Forbidden Stars on Amazon.
I saw the tweet.
And then I freaked out because it came in the mail yesterday. Oh my God.
Nice.
So the reason I'm excited about Forbidden Stars is it's a combination of 3 of the things I really like. So one, it's set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, which again, I know I pick on GW, but I do like the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Second, the rules are by Fantasy Flight Games, which I love Fantasy Flight Games. And third, it is based on the StarCraft board game rule system, which I absolutely love. Yeah. So got it yesterday, and I was looking at it, and my youngest daughter came in the room, and she said, Dad, if you make me play this game, I want to be the Space Elves. So I'm like, well, A, she's subtly interested, and B, sure, as long as you play the game with me. So today, my oldest daughter was going to a sleepover, so we set it up, and she started playing it, and she had an absolute blast with me. We played it. We only got through about 5 turns. It's an 8-turn game. We're learning. She totally got it. She's like, okay, I'm setting myself up for an orbital bombardment. I'm like, how do you even know there's orbital bombardment in this game? And she just smiled at me. And I'm like, what are you doing over there? And she totally came in. She wiped out one of my orc I'm playing the orc. She's playing the Eldar. Wiped out one of my orc factories. She's using webway portals, teleporting guys all around the galaxy. It does use the StarCraft rules. You can definitely tell it was informed by it, but it fixes 2 of the really fiddly bits of StarCraft.
Oh, yeah? What are those bits?
The first fiddly bit in StarCraft is how you actually generate units. So StarCraft wanted to be like the video game. So you move all these little worker tokens around, and it's this really complicated thing. Whenever anybody buys stuff, it's really, really complicated. In this game, buying stuff is almost exactly like Rune Wars. It's just a list of costs on your mat in front of you, and you just pay the cost. And everybody's got a resource dial, so you just dial down what you're paying for. So that's really simple. And then secondly, combat is much simpler and involves dice. So the dice are awesome. You roll this pool of dice, but then you do have a card deck like in StarCraft. You can add to the situation, but it's much simpler. And you can also buy new cool card abilities and add to your deck. And I thought this was going to overcomplicate it for her too. And she's like, oh, this is awesome. And all of a sudden she's pulling out like Howling Banshees and Swooping Hawk Exarchs. I'm like, where are you? How do you even know it? She's like, blowing me up. It was awesome. So
very nice.
I'm so proud of my 11-year-old for mastering one of the most complex games I own. And B, it's really, really a lot of fun. If you like, if you like 40K, you got to try this game out. Really, really cool.
I'm 100% in. You sold me.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like we'll be doing a review.
Oh, we got it. So, Craig, we're going to try this out. And there's even warp storms that move around the board and block it's awesome.
Nice.
Oh, it's awesome. It's really, really good. And the factions, so I've only played Orcs and Eldar right now, but they're totally right. So, basically, remember in like Game of Thrones or in StarCraft, you put your orders, and the orders go in little stack piles, right?
Yeah.
Where you're going to move to. And one of the orders is like gather resources. So, one of the orders is gather, and based on which planets are in that system, you gather the resources from those planets. Well, when you do that, you can also use your racial power, and each race has a special power. The Orcs is Orc Spores, and basically lets you buy a new unit without having a factory there. So you basically just sort of more Orcs just pop out, which is Orky. The Eldars get the Webway Portal thing, which basically lets them move one unit from one of their worlds to any other world they own. So they can just basically move around the world and defend them. So it's really very fluffy. It gives you just enough flavor, but then also you have all those decks of combat decks that are all faction specific too. So it really captures the feeling. I can't wait to try the Ultramarines out. So you got Ultramarines, Chaos, Orcs, and Eldar. So a nice blend too. And the miniatures are fantastic. She was falling in love with the miniatures. Oh, I want to build one of these giant things. So a lot of fun. Really enjoyed Forbidden Stars. It's so far my half a play. So all right. What about modeling? John, you got any modeling in lately?
I'm such a slacker. I didn't model anything. I thought about putting together my Saren and Ryas from the Hordes anniversary set.
Yeah.
And then I looked and saw how small their arms are, and I put them back in the baggie and said I'm going to do it later.
Oh, wow. All right, so taking a break. Got it. I can't really say anything because I'm also in a similar boat. So that leaves Craig for doing modeling. Craig, so what have you been doing? I know you've been painting like a dog over there.
We got this really cool,
cool
care package from England.
We did.
With a lot of Guild Ball stuff.
Yeah. John, close your ears now if you don't want to buy more crap. All right, just close your ears right now.
Actually, before you get started, Guild Ball is something I'm very interested in.
Then get ready to spend money because this game is fantastic. Go ahead, Craig.
That's really good.
Yeah, it is.
It's really good.
So we got 4 teams with extra blisters, so it was full teams of all 4 factions. We got the Masons, the Morticians, the Alchemists, and the Brewers.
Yep.
And I had some ideas in my head about what I wanted, but I was like, "Oh, I got them, so I have them, and I have them first."
I
wanted Russ to have some ownership of this whole process, so I was like, "Russ, here are the 4. What do you want?" He listed 2 of them, so I gave him both of the ones he wanted. So he got his top billing, even though one of my top billings was in there.
Oh, so I didn't know this.
Yeah, I know I didn't. No, you have done nothing wrong.
Okay.
Okay, I don't want anybody thinking that like Russ has done nothing wrong. Okay, except give away my top choice, but that's fine. That's fine. He didn't know it was my top choice. I didn't tell him that it was. From now on, I know to tell.
Just
Russ,
trying to spread the faction love. They've got more players.
Well, no. I have no problem with. I can't wait to see what Adam does with it. Adam's a great painter. He's a great gamer. It's awesome that we have more people with. I have no problem with anything that happened. I would have said, "Oh, cool, Russ. Those 2 are cool. In fact, this one's my and you know what? I made the decision not to because they reminded me so much of Troll Bloods.
Yeah.
Because they're tartany and they're Scottish.
In the end, I didn't want to paint more tartan. Is it basically? In the end,
well, I loved painting my tartan, but I thought, you know what? I've already done that, and so I'm gonna let Russ have them anyway. There's no hard feelings in any way, shape, or form.
The ones you got though, they look fantastic. You tweeted a picture of the.
So the Masons I really liked a lot. They were probably my second choice faction anyway. For looks, because we didn't know anything about gameplay.
Right.
So I painted that entire faction up. You need goalposts for this game, or goals, and your goal is a 50 millimeter base with what a lot of people are doing is just like a pillar on it.
Yeah.
Because basically your team is trying to kick the ball. It's soccer, as we said last.
It's soccer with a cricket wicket.
It's sometimes, depending on what team you have. My guys use giant Mason's hammers.
There you go.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
And you're trying to hit a goal. So I wanted to have thematic goals, and so where better to go for bits and pieces than her starts? Mm-hmm. So of course on eBay and other places you can get her starts by the mold pieces instead of paying $30 for the mold and then getting all the other stuff. And so if you're doing a small project, going on eBay is a great way to do it. I would say be very careful. It is extremely difficult to do Hearst Arts molds with resin. And I knew that, and I found somebody who was doing it in resin, and I was like, you know what? They probably aren't selling it if they haven't figured it out. that was my mistake. There are a lot of little holes, little aeration, bubbles in the molds and stuff. So that was a little disappointing. I probably would have complained, except that I was so jazzed. I wanted to have these done by Tuesday because I forgot I was going to New York. So I just built them. And once they're built and painted, you can't really tell. It's not there's huge glaring errors or anything like that. Right. And so I have my masons have a giant Roman pillar with a shield hanging off of it with the Masons logo painted on it.
Nice.
So that's their thing. And I painted up all their guys. And one thing that Steamforged Games offers, I think it might have been a Kickstarter thing that they threw in for us just to get us more excited, but they have these awesome resin base inserts that are terrain. They reminded me very much of the Wild West Exodus ones. Those are in plastic. These are from Steamforged Games. These are in resin. But they're very cool. They made basing up the models super fast, super easy. But, I'm me, so I didn't want to have two teams with the same basing. So, and they gave us plenty for all the models they gave us. So Russ has all the ones that he needs. I had all the ones for all the models I have. But I wanted to have a totally different look for my other faction. So when I painted the Morticians, which I finished today, because I'm trying to get a project done every Sunday for the Games and Gears month of painting thing that they do on their Facebook page. Mm-hmm. So, and I tweeted a bunch of pictures of the Masons already. I'm going to tweet a bunch of pictures of the Morticians, hopefully later tonight or tomorrow. So I finished the Morticians also. I'm more excited about the Masons, especially when everybody's tweeting to me that they're the best team in the whole thing.
There you go.
I was super excited about that because usually I pick a team on the way they look and everybody goes, they're really a finesse team.
Right.
They're really like if you like the fluff and you don't mind losing.
Right.
This is the first time I've gotten like a flood of, oh my God, that's awesome. They're like the winners. No one can beat them. I was like, oh, cool. So I get that benefit and the fact that I picked them because they look cool and I didn't even open the book before I picked them. So
nice.
I didn't actually get to pick them. So even better.
I love the book
too,
man.
There's actually a lot of ties between Guild Ball and Warmachine. So they're one of their lead playtesters is Jamie Perkins from the UK.
Yep.
He's a huge Warmachine player and one of my good friends.
Cool.
And he came to Lock and Load, was giving demos at Lock and Load at Guild Ball, so I got a demo there.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Liked it so much that I think I started talking to Paul North, who's the equivalent of their press gang coordinator. I can't remember what they call that program.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But they have, just guys out there evangelizing for their game and helping people get comfortable with it, and they're just getting that program started to run events and all that stuff. But I talked to the guy that Paul North, and he's the coordinator of all those guys. And I think at Muse we're actually going to get a forum set up and try to get a home for those Guild Ball guys.
Nice.
Very cool.
Start getting some content, maybe some videos, some podcasts. Who knows where it'll go? But it's pretty exciting stuff.
It is exciting. I think they got a winner here.
Cool.
This is I love the rule book. I love the artwork. I love it seems to be very clear rules. I love there's a lot going on. I think the guys have done this right. And there's a lot of great teams. So, a lot of options.
I would call it like a new aged rule set. So how board games sort of made this, it seemed like just a huge leap from how mechanics work in the game, where it's very clean and very intuitive and easy to understand, but still deep, so that you get a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Yep, absolutely. So
I'd agree.
So my goal for the Morticians is a giant stone monument.
Oh, nice.
And a coffin in front of it laying down with a bunch of stacked tombstones on top of that to put it to the correct height, and an open coffin lying against the monument on the top, so that the fat open end of the casket is at the same height of the target of the Mason's goal.
So it's like shooting from a casket.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So I was super, super, super jazzed about that. Really excited. I almost finished today. They also sent us one mercenary model. It's actually two models because it's basically Master Blaster from Thunderdome.
Yeah.
It's a big giant guy who carries this little small guy around on a big strap across his chest. And his name is Greed is the little guy, and Avarice, of course, both spelled Frenchy. Frenchily. I didn't mean to use a derogatory term.
I'm going to say.
And I almost have those finished also, so those are going to be cool. And I can't remember. The mercenaries have their own, they're called the Union. They're their own team. And then, except for the captain, everybody on the Union team will play for other team members also. And there's a really cool political backstory going on in the whole game where the teams are nothing but pawns to this massive power brokering that's going on in the empire of the free cities is what they call it.
Yep.
And so you don't know why, your players won't know why, but all of a sudden a player from the Union will show up that day to play on your team.
Yep.
And you're like, I don't know why you're here. So that's kind of the only iffy thing about this game. I'm nervous about the fact that none of the models have point values. So it's just like, you have 5 models plus a mascot, and he has 5 models plus a mascot. Good luck. So it'll be interesting to see how, like right now, there's only many of the teams only have the requisite models to field a full size team. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But I'm sure they've got something up their sleeves, because we have heard nothing but amazing, glowing things from all of our friends. Owen loves it. Phil loves it. A bunch of other people have written to us since we started talking about it. They're all excited that we're interested in it. So there's been a lot of tweeting about it.
Yes,
lately.
a lot of tweeting.
So yeah, so that was my painting.
Nice.
And the models are gorgeous.
They really
they're
gorgeous.
just
Sculpts are great. Yeah.
They're well done.
Do a little research. Go on their website and make sure you know what they look like, though, because I've been doing this for 30 years and I managed to screw up 2 of those Mortician models that really upset me. I think they came out fine, unless you know how they're supposed to look, and then you're like, wow, it's not quite as cool as it's supposed to look. But yeah, they are beautiful models.
Cool. What about other random geekery? So, John, TV shows, books you're reading, whatever.
I restarted Dresden Files. It seems like I do that every year. I just queue them all up in Audible and I listen to them while I'm at work.
13 books
very
now.
nice.
Are you reading them all? Do you read the whole series over and over again?
Yeah, I just do it over and over again.
Nice.
I just love them. They're so much fun.
Good. Yeah.
I'm actually looking for my next book series. I'm like waiting for all these authors to finish. So obviously,
my
waiting
daughter,
for
my 11-year-old just picked up. She wanted to read a more grown-up book, and so she picked up Jim Butcher's fantasy series. She's got the first book.
Yep.
She's loving it. Absolutely.
Codex Alara?
Yeah.
Yeah, that series is awesome. I just finished that last month.
Yeah, she's loving it. So
yeah, that's good stuff too.
Yep.
Actually, the only reason why I have a membership at Audible is because of you guys. So that's
Of course,
great.
What a coincidence! We can say that. Well,
Did you go to
Russ
our,
can't say the same, but I can.
Did you go to our website and click the Audible logo and get a free book and 60-day trial or 30-day trial?
Yeah, like 4 years ago.
There you go. See?
Yeah.
See, John is living proof of how cool Audible is. So go do
No,
this.
it's great.
It's cool.
Yeah, that's right. So what else? Go ahead, John.
Yep. And then we go to a lot of movies. So I saw Jurassic World, Inside Out, Ted 2.
Yeah.
On the last couple weeks.
What'd you think of Inside Out?
That's amazing.
My kids liked it so much we saw it twice. We don't normally see movies twice. So yeah.
Without spoiling too much, my absolute favorite is when they, the kid starts puberty and they get a whole new console.
Yes.
and it's got like a million more buttons, and they're like, what does this button do?
Right.
And I'm just imagining like every kid going through puberty having random things like random moods or
Well, you know what's a subtle thing too I didn't notice till the second viewing is that, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but I didn't really catch it. The consoles get bigger as you get older.
Yeah.
So when you're younger, only one emotion can be in control of you at a time. So when you get sad, you're just completely sad. But adults have all the emotions are engaged at once, so you can have more complex feelings. It was really a subtle thing that really kind of comes through the second viewing. We really
And the adult control panel has cup holders.
Yes. And did you also catch that inside the dad, when it cuts to his emotions, Anger's in the command chair, and the command chair is totally James T. Kirk's command chair from the Enterprise.
Yep, I totally caught that. Yeah,
awesome.
God bless Pixar. They're so awesome.
They really are. They still got it. That was a fantastic film.
We just saw that today. We loved it. Even Reese loved it, and I don't think it's specifically geared towards 5-year-old boys.
No, but it nails it.
But he was engaged. Yeah. He was engaged.
It was fantastic. And what did you think of Jurassic World? I've not seen that yet.
So I would say watch it once. It's great the first time you watch it. Yeah. If you watch it a second time and you spend less time sort of unengaged, just taking it all in, and more time like thinking about what's going on, it's a lot. It doesn't hold up to the second viewing very well.
Oh, come on. I loved it. I only saw it once. You saw it twice?
Yep. The second I liked it so much I went a second time, and then after I came out the second time, I'm like, I wish I hadn't done that to myself. So
because I would say I liked it so much that I would see it again, and now I won't because of what you said, because I don't want to feel what you're feeling.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, I thought it was an awesome and fitting heir to the first movie, ignoring the second and the third.
I agree. So I think what carried me through my first viewing was the nostalgia was great. I mean, it was
fantastic.
Yeah, everything. You're just like, wow.
All the little callbacks were awesome.
Yep. And the music gets me every time. It's one of the best scores in history.
John Williams.
Yeah.
He's the man.
And then I don't watch much TV, but I just, I would make time for Game of Thrones, and now that that's over, and after we get done recording tonight, I'm going to watch the second BattleBots. I'm excited about that.
Yes, BattleBots! Woohoo, it's back!
Okay.
I am loving BattleBots. Every geeky engineer.
I don't know about you, Russ. I'm so excited. I'm like, this doesn't look like. Is there like some sort of league or something? Like, could I build a BattleBot?
Yeah, you totally can. Did you see the first season back in the day?
Yeah, way back in the day.
Yeah, way back in the day, right. So, there's, in fact, my neighbor, my old neighbor, he's since moved, but their son, he used to run Robot Combat 2 locally, and he had the whole arena and everything. And he'd be out in the middle of our street with his arena set up, and they'd be practicing. And but there are BattleBot leagues all over the country, and you eventually get to. But it's awesome. I love it. In this season, I kind of miss it being on Comedy Central. I like the old announcers, but the new episode's fantastic, and they've really kicked up the destruction level now.
Yeah, the guys that lose just got smashed.
The satellite robots, and the one time Nightmare shot the little exploding fire guy across the room, and he detonated into. I love the fact that flamethrowers seem to be very ineffective, but I love the fact that people keep putting them on robots.
Yeah, exactly.
It's you're not really going to fry a robot, but it just looks so cool.
The other thing that I kind of checked out, and it's not really a television show, but have you guys seen those first-person view copter races?
No.
So are you familiar with the quadcopters that people are flying all over the place?
Right.
Well, what they do is they strap a camera on it like a GoPro,
right,
and then they put on glasses, like VR glasses that give you the video from the front of the vehicle.
Yep.
And they race them. So you're literally in a pod, basically, racing by this camera. Yeah, you should look it up. It's first-person viewed FPV drone racing. It's amazing.
Wow. So
I was like, oh my gosh, that looks awesome.
Would you get motion sick or no?
I'm pretty sure I would. I don't know about anyone else. They one of the videos I saw, one of the guys was he's doing a nerd YouTube show or whatever, and the guy handed him the controller and then gave him the glasses and said, "You might want to sit down if you're going to fly this."
That's cool.
So, yep. But yeah, that's about it for other stuff, I guess.
Well, that's pretty good. Craig, I'll go next because you have a long list.
Yeah. Well, half my stuff's already been taken.
Oh, good.
So
well, we already talked about BattleBots. That's awesome. So I'm going to I'm taking the family to Alaska, and we're stopping in Vancouver first.
Now, are you doing a cruise?
Yes, we are.
But it's not a Disney cruise.
No, it is a Disney cruise.
Oh, it is? Oh, congratulations.
Yes, so
you're going to love it. Did you know you were going on a Disney cruise when I went on mine?
No, it was not firm.
Oh, okay.
We knew we were going to Alaska, but we hadn't.
Because that's kind of cheesy.
No.
Not to say you're going.
No. We didn't know. So we were going to Alaska, but I couldn't decide at that time if we wanted to cruise and see less of it, but see it really from a cooler perspective.
Yep.
Or go on a train. They have these various train tours, or rent a RV.
There's a lot of really cool ways.
So I decided to cruise because you'd raved about it. So it was one of those.
Oh, it's awesome. You're gonna love it.
So we're very excited about that. But anyway, so it's the week after 4th of July we're taking off, and the because we can leave July 3rd because everybody's off for July 3rd here in the United States. I am going to fly. We're flying to Vancouver on July 3rd. We're going to spend the weekend in Vancouver. So I've been talking to everybody what do you do in Vancouver? Because I'm there for 3 days. And so Tara's got back to me and said, you have to check out this place called the Storm Crow Tavern. Because it apparently is a super nerdy, geeky tavern. And the reviews are the coolest tavern with a battle axe on the wall kind of thing. And so so I'm going to check that out. But I can't wait for a weekend in Vancouver. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then I'm looking forward to that trip. So, but I wanted to mention the geeky tavern there. So if you're in Vancouver, apparently that's really cool. I'll let you know when I get back if it was really cool. And then lastly, I'll just talk about my books here. I was reading the Finishing School series by Gail Carriger. Caught up to that. There's a new one coming out this fall. Can't wait. And these are the ones that are about, this is again that takes place in Victorian era, alternate reality though. So it's steampunk, and there are werewolves and vampires and ghosts. And so in the first set of books I read of hers, they all take place. It's a young adult book. Or series of books, and it takes place to these girls that are at finishing school, but happen to be in a dirigible. And the finishing school actually is teaching them finishing school stuff that you normally teach to ladies of quality in England. But in addition to learning about tea and how to properly curtsy, they also learn about how to use various espionage techniques and blade-coated fans and things like that. Anyway, so I got done with that series, and I moved on to her first series, which is actually her adult series, which is the Parasol Protectorate series. And I have to now classify this series as a guilty pleasure because I have read Soulless and I've read Changeless, the second book, and I am now reading Blameless, the third book. I am absolutely loving these. I love her writing style so much. It's very quirky, very funny, but it's a guilty pleasure because it skates dangerously close to romance novel moments. But otherwise, it's great. I mean, it's really, really good stuff. I love her world. I love her. They finally introduced an American in the last book. So you start to understand the difference. So in England, after the Dark Ages, the English government recognized that werewolves and vampires exist and brought them into part of the government. So Queen Victoria actually has werewolves in the army, which is one of the reasons that the English have conquered most, have done so well, because they have werewolves and vampires. In the United States, though, now it's the mid-1800s, during the Civil War, the vampires were outlawed. They're still, because we're so Christian, they were still being persecuted as evil creatures. So the vampires have joined the South in the Civil War because they're trying to fight for their independence. So it's really sort of interesting. So these kind of quirks are really getting kind of neat. I'm really enjoying these elements of the world. So a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying those books a lot. So if you like that kind of stuff and can stand a little bit of romance in with your vampires and werewolves, then I would definitely highly recommend Gail Carriage's stuff.
Cool.
So, all right, Craig, what have you been doing?
Okay, so my stuff. Let's see. I'm halfway through listening to Feast for Crows. Yeah, Feast for Crows. And so far, I'm still liking it. The only problem is all the missing characters, and now I'm starting to think, okay, that's why, the writing's still good, but the fact that there's no Tyrion, it's really starting to be clear. And okay, so there's 2 entirely new plot lines that are getting introduced in book 4 of a 7-book series. So lots of things going on that I should have been like, wait, what's going on? But I didn't. And anyway, I'm still enjoying it. Movies, we already talked about Jurassic World and Inside Out. Yep. Super. I liked them both. Both of them were way better than San Andreas. So there you go. And then, so let's see. TV first. And this sounds exactly right up what you were just talking about, Russ. Have you heard of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell?
No.
From, I want to say it's the History Channel, but I don't know for sure. No, BBC America. Sorry, BBC America. I saw the ads when I was finishing up Orphan Black, that just wrapped up. It's very, very cool. Not least because one of the main characters is a secondary character from a show on Showtime that I watch, whose name escapes me. So in Showtime, the guy plays Boston, an old boxer who has cerebral palsy. He's got a Boston accent. He's an awesome actor. I totally bought him as a Bostonian. In Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, the theory is it's 1803 in England, and magic is just like it would be in our history timeline. It doesn't exist, although it did a long time ago, and only those in the know that that's true, and it wasn't just fantasy.
Yep.
So there's these little societies of rich guys who get together and smoke cigars and drink brandy and talk about the good old days. And they consider themselves magicians because they study it, but they can't do it. And they justify it by saying a real gentleman wouldn't do magic. Mm-hmm. And they get into these big arguments that are awesome. Like, does a botanist create plants? Does an astronomer create stars? So they get into these awesome. And then this guy shows up and he's like, hi, I'm Mr. He pronounces it Norrell. Right. And everybody thinks that that's so low class that they're like, Mr. Norrell. And he's like, it's Norrell, actually. And he's a wizard and he can do these really awesome things. And what it turns out is there's some sort of strange power, struggle going on in the in the magical world, and it's going to culminate between these 2 guys, Jonathan Strange, who's a sort of a playboy he's never had a job, never needed a job. Now he can do magic and he's trying to control it, but he doesn't know how he does it. Mm-hmm. So he can only do it when it in his head it kind of makes sense.
Oh, that sounds cool.
It's very, very cool.
So what show is this?
Awesome show. Really cool special effects. Very creepy. Little the stuff that's going on, you can always tell that there's something creepy going on in the back, underneath it all.
So what's it called?
It's called Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And it's a mini-series, so it's on BBC. I highly recommend you check it out.
All right, we'll check it out.
And then we fall to the normal, oh my God, it's summer, let's take advantage of the fact that nobody has anything new going on, sci-fi schedule.
Yes.
Defiance, have you started watching that yet?
I have, and wow, what a first episode. Holy
gutsy
crap.
episode.
I liked it.
There.
It was very bold.
I was like, wow, all right, bold. Very,
yeah.
indeed.
All my favorite characters were involved, though, so it was great.
Yeah, indeed. One of the many reasons it was bold.
Yeah, Nicole and I were talking about that one for hours afterwards.
I have no doubt. I didn't have anybody to talk with it. I was like, oh, that didn't happen the way I thought it happened. Oh, it did. Okay.
One of the best season premieres ever.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. So I was like, you know what? Maybe these guys are getting better. So I watched Killjoys.
No, I've not seen that one.
Killjoys is okay, guys. Guardians of the Galaxy made a lot of money, so let's make a TV show about. It's all humans so far. I don't know if there's going to be any aliens, but it's all humans. Bounty hunters. They're like skirting the edge of the law. And they're like wild and wacky. There's like 2 of them at the beginning of the pilot, and there's 3 by the end. And it's like the acting is, the writing is like really kind of. There's 3 really good chuckles that I got out of it that were almost worthy of like kind of throwaway lines from Guardians of the Galaxy, but they were the highlights of that show. So Killjoys, I'll watch another episode or 2, but I don't know if it's going to catch me. Dark Matter, I haven't been able to watch yet, but that looks along the similar lines.
I watched the first episode and we fell asleep, but I was liking it.
Okay. Were you liking it and then you fell asleep?
Tired,
yeah, so I'm going to give it a chance. I haven't. Did you watch Ascension last year?
I did. I watched the miniseries is like 3 episodes.
Yeah. How did that get out? How did that escape my
liked
radar?
it.
I don't know.
I liked it a lot. Have you gotten past the first episode yet?
I have gotten through 2 episodes.
Okay, so there's the big reveal in the second episode, right?
Yes.
Which I thought was awesome.
Yes, it was awesome.
Yeah, so no spoilers, but I liked it. I was hoping they'd make a series out of it because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it, although I feel like it needed a slightly larger budget for the acting.
Yes.
I feel like they have an awesome concept and they have a lot of really cool really cool actors. Some of the actors are visibly weaker than others. Yep. And I thought that the writing, the actual granular writing, the lines weren't as good as the overall concept was.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt.
It's a neat concept, though. I liked it. And they had some
it's a great concept.
There's some sci-fi alumni in there. You know,
of course there are.
You're right. So I liked it, though. I thought it was pretty good. There's just, but you're right. I mean, I don't know. I liked it a lot, but it wasn't like didn't blow me
I'm liking it a lot. It's just kind of like I'll totally forget that there are parts of it that I'm a little soft on, and then that like an actor will show up and I'll be like, oh, that's right there in it. Yeah. Or they'll come up with a line and I'll be like, oh, there's so many cooler ways you could have said that.
Right.
But yeah, no, I'm really, really enjoying that. And then on the writing front, I did just submit my final edited draft of Legacy of Shadow, my first independent novel. So that was super ridiculously exciting. Now it will get chopped up by the actual editor and sent back to me, hopefully intact other than, typos. But that was super, super exciting. So for the first time in almost half a year, tomorrow I will wake up with absolutely nothing to write.
Nice.
So that's kind of scary. I was supposed to have a writing conference with Romeo today, and it fell through. So I'll have it tomorrow. But tomorrow I will wake up with no driving need to jump onto my computer. I do have to do the Extra Life story, and I know I'm going to get on track. That's going to be the first thing I work on this summer as soon as I get the story thing out of the way with Romeo. So I'm excited about that too. All of my supporters from Extra Life 2015 expect to get an email from me soon, and I'll do a drawing, and we'll see who gets to be the main character of that short story. And I'm just super excited that Winged Hussar Publishing and Vince going strong. Everything seems to be going really great. Romeo is super excited about the next book. So far, so good.
Good.
If I suck, nobody's mentioned it to me yet.
That's good.
I'm just so happy for you, Craig, because a lot of us dream of being writers, but to actually to go through with it and follow through and be on that road, I just think that's great. Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Thank you very much. It's exciting. It is exciting.
Cool. I'm excited for you.
Me too.
Thank you.
And is that achievements?
That's me. That's achievements for me.
There you go. That's achievements.
The D6 generation. Not as good as Lord of the Rings, but better than The Hobbit.
But the hobbits, as the lovely hobbit is. Smeagol, there is only one hobbit in the hobbits. There are 1, 2, many hobbits in the Lord of the Rings.
That sound means it's time to talk about our friends at Lone Wolf Development.
Lone Wolf.
And, they are the makers of our favorite gaming software, whether it's Army Builder, the software that started it all, the one that lets you build your miniature wargaming armies quick and easy. Seriously, if you play any serious miniature war game, you must get Army Builder.
It makes the most odious part of miniature wargaming equal in fun to all the other parts.
Yeah. And their second one, which is doing fantastic also, is Hero Lab, which is a great way to crank out your favorite RPG characters for all your favorite RPGs. Although they have some great, if you're a Pathfinder player, you need to go check out Hero Lab, especially the iPad character sheet, which is certainly interactive and really, really slick. And of course, my personal favorite now, and it's their newest piece of software, and I use it every time I play Dungeons & Dragons, Realmworks. Mm-hmm. So Realmworks is a great way, it's a great tool for the game master. Track your world, create all the locations, create all the characters, create all the NPCs, put all the monsters in there, link them all together to easily find stuff, take notes while you play, reveal maps as you go, broadcast a player view on one screen while you're working a little quietly on your laptop on the other, have the players work along with you. Fantastic. Take notes of what your players have seen, what they haven't seen, share that information with them on the player view. Really, really cool stuff. Realmworks is fantastic as well. So there's just awesome stuff going on every single day at Wolf Lair. They're making some of the coolest software ever. And those three products, if you're a role player and you're not checking out Hero Lab or Realmworks, you need to. And if you're a miniature war game, Arm Builder, the tool you need.
Fantastic stuff.
wolflair.com.
And now, in an attempt to bring a small amount of dignity and decorum to this otherwise base form of entertainment, and I use the term loosely, I am proud to present...
Oh, get on with it. It's time for App of the Up.
Seriously, Wakeland? I used to have my own segment, and now I'm relegating to announcing this pap...
Hey, you're lucky we still use you. Well, welcome back to another App of the App. This time out, I want to talk about another very elegant little time-wasting app that's actually quite a bit of fun, and you'll be surprised at how many times you play it over and over again in trying to do better, and that is the game Dragon Hills. Now, not too long ago, I reviewed a game that was sort of like this, Alto, which was a great snowboarding game, and Dragon Hills is similar in that it's a side-scroller, and there's really only one control. You tap the screen to make your dragon dive, and you let go to make your dragon rise. So really, really very simple. And the premise of this game is this little girl, very anime. It's a very beautiful game, different style than Alto. So Alto's got this sort of very, very artistic style. Dragon Hill's a little more cartoony, but still very cool, a little more anime-ish. But I like the, so the premise is you're basically this girl riding a dragon. The dragon can fly, but the dragon can also open its mouth and chomp its way through the ground. And so what you basically do is when you tap the screen, the dragon will dive and start chomping through the ground. And when you take your finger off the screen, the dragon will start to rise up and come into the air. And by doing this, you will dodge bad guys, eat them, blast buildings and make parts land on them and kill them. I think it's really a tribute to the game designers that they can make games this compelling and this fun with such a simple control scheme. Alto is another great example of this, and Dragon Hills is a great one. It is a free game. I have not paid a dime for it. I find that just the progression's just the right speed. I don't feel like it's pay to win or anything like that. And really, really enjoying it. I think what makes it great is there's a little good music soundtrack, but I like the games where I don't need music because I like to be able to play them. I don't feel like I'm missing any audio because I like to play them while I'm waiting in line or maybe, waiting for the movie to start or stuck at the airport waiting for the plane to board. So games like this are fantastic. And really my girls and I are just playing it and there's no multiplayer. You just play by yourself, but we're always challenging each other to get a little farther. And it's one of those games where you get far enough, you unlock yet another thing, better armor for your dragon, a better sword. And you eventually fight these different kinds of bosses who throw different threats at you. And again, with this just trivial control scheme, you really get to, find yourself really thinking hard about getting past these problems. So it's really a very impressive game when you think about how simple it is and how elegant it is. And that again is Dragon Hills on iOS. And that is the app of the app. Thank you for listening to another scintillating edition of App of the App. A segment in which, hey, less of that, more just getting on with the show. Seriously, Wakeland, you are like school in summer. No class. Hey, welcome back. And we figured since we already have John here on the show and already established, John's gamer cred and all the great games he's been playing here in Achievements in Gaming earlier, John, you just got back from the awesomeness that is Lock and Load, correct?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It was unbelievable.
So I have always wanted to go, and I'm just so excited to have you here on the show to be able to talk to you about this. And so now, is this your first year at Lock and Load, or have you been before?
No, I think this is my third year at Lock and Load, and I'll probably
Nice.
Yeah.
So,
he's a pro.
So I'm definitely going.
Yeah, great.
I was going to say I'm definitely going back next year, and you guys should come with. I'll help you. I'll show you the ropes.
Awesome. Okay, well, this is great.
Nice.
So
There you
you are
go.
a professional. You've been several times now, and so you can tell us all the details and entice us and our listeners why Lock and Load should be on the when it should go. So first, obviously it's Privateer Press's premier convention. It's held out in Washington State every year. Is this their third year doing it, or has it been longer than that now?
I think it's their fourth year.
Okay.
So I've been every year but one. I actually might have been there 4, and this might be their 5th year. It gets kind of lost in the jumble.
It's all a blur.
Yeah.
So what's the overall now, have you been to other conventions? Is this the only convention you go to? How much convention do you do?
I go to every Warmachine convention pretty much.
Yeah.
In the last year, I've been to Ireland for the Irish Masters.
Nice.
The World Team Championship in Poland last year. TempleCon on the East Coast.
Yeah.
St. Louis for Warmachine Weekend. Adepticon, Gen Con, Lock and Load. So we hit most of them.
Excellent.
So there's your War Machine cred right there.
Well, not only that, but convention cred. So you can compare this to broader spectrum
much
events
everything.
like Adepticon or Gen Con. So what is the appeal of Lock and Load? Why were you like, I got to start going to this thing?
Okay, well, the unique thing about Lock and Load is that you just get access to all the Privateer Press staffers, which is really, really fun. So you can talk to a Doug Hamilton about what he's sculpting, and you'll get a little preview of, I think he was maybe working on the Glacier King, or I can't remember what he was sculpting, or you can talk to Will Hungerford, who's in charge of the press gang, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. It's the volunteer organization that kind of makes Warmachine go. You get to see, from the very top, Matt Wilson is there, and they're all just so accessible. They're just excited to talk to us, their customers about their game, and so I think that's the number one selling point for Lock and Load. I mean, all the conventions are great. I mean, if you want to go play Warmachine, you get to play as much Warmachine as you can stomach, which for me happens to be a lot, but that's okay.
That's good.
But it's just awesome. And then I think the Warmachine community is the best community. So getting to hang out with all of my friends, and I make new ones at every convention, is just the best. So Lock and Load is fantastic. And again, if you want to meet some of the Privateer Press staffers, I mean, you can do it there, which is great.
So it's right there. So just so everybody knows, it's typically held in early June, right?
Yep, usually the first week in June.
Yep.
So this year it was like June 5th-ish.
Yep.
Actually, I'm going to look. It was 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Excuse me.
Cheating.
So just recently, and it is always in. Where's the venue? Is it right outside their corporate headquarters? Is it downtown?
It's pretty near to their corporate headquarters. So it's in Bellevue, Washington.
Yep.
The first 2 years it was at the Red Lion Inn, which is in downtown Seattle.
Yep.
But they've grown so much that they moved to the Bellevue Convention Center, which is the Maidenbauer Center, which is in Bellevue, Washington.
Yep.
I guess it's kind of a suburb.
So how does it compare in size and scope to like something like an Adepticon or a TempleCon? Is it roughly the same size, bigger than that, smaller than that?
It's very, very well. It's weird. I would say that it's maybe half the size of TempleCon, but twice as many Warmachine players, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
That mathematically probably figures out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say there's probably 800 to 1,000 Warmachine players there, which is a good size con, but it's only Warmachine. So,
right.
if you go to an Adepticon or a TempleCon, you have lots of other distractions as well. So
that's pretty impressive that just for basically one game system is bringing that many people in.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is the busiest section at Lock and Load, and at most of the conventions that I go to, is the what they call Iron Arena.
Yeah,
which is where anybody can go and you just get a pickup game with anybody from across the country, and you score these like skulls you can use to buy cool stuff. But if you look at that area, it is always packed. It is just packed.
Yeah, well, last year at Gen Con, so my daughter has gotten into Warmachine, and so last year at Gen Con, I took her to the Iron Arena tables because she loves, she's like, oh, look at these cool tables because they have all the great, I don't know, professionally made, I guess, really, really high quality terrain tables, and she loves to play on them. And it's always crowded, so you really got to sign up and wait for an opportunity to get in there because, and I think it's great because that's like that's almost like casual play, right? Like it's not. I mean, people take it seriously, but it's not competitive at all. Like
no, it's not competitive in any way. It is actually. That is exactly what I would call it as casual play, but it's great because the casual play is what drives the game and allows the company to be successful. So as long as you look and see Iron Arena doing really well, then Privateer Press is doing really well.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good sign for, I guess, days to come.
I love that. So let's talk a little about, this is a nice segue into the kind of events that are there and the kind of things that you look forward to that are there. So clearly it is an important venue for tournaments, and obviously on the I guess the circuit, if you will. What kind of tournaments do they hold there for those who are really into hardcore tournaments?
Well, I mean, they have lots of different types of tournaments. I think the two most prominent ones are what they call Masters, which is a format that they run. They have it's like excuse me while I just fill your podcast with dead air for a second.
Right. It's good radio. It's good radio, right? We can babble on for hours about nothing. That's
okay.
Been proven.
The Masters format is a format that is a 2-list format, and it's a very competitive format, and I think it's probably the most prestigious format right now, but Iron Gauntlet is a newer format, which is the other competitive format, and that's a 3-list format that requires painting, so it's a little bit more hardcore, but it's really picking up steam. So you're seeing Iron Gauntlet become more and more popular.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. So one of the things I think Craig has been critiqued the Warmachine sort of community on is that for a long time it was kind of known as the highly competitive game that no one painted.
That was a long time ago.
So, but now it feels like painting is almost is really become more and more essential at some of these major events. Is the Iron Gauntlet sort of the premier painting and playing event?
It is, yeah. So I would say that crown used to be held by the hardcore.
Yeah.
But Iron Gauntlet really, it's kind of cool. It's actually a circuit that they set up, and you can play in Iron Gauntlet tournaments all over the world and score points to get qualified to come to the big tournament at Lock and Load every year.
Oh, cool.
And it's broken up by region. And so it's pretty interesting. I think this year we had players from England, Sweden, Scotland, Australia. So it's like really a worldwide event. So it's pretty cool.
So if you win that event, you are literally a world champion at Warmachine.
You absolutely are.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. That's really cool. So so that's sort of I guess a newish format. How long have they been running the Iron Gauntlet format now?
So Iron Gauntlet has been around for 2 years, and after the first year, they completely revamped the format. So because they got a lot of feedback from their players, they were just not excited about the first format, which is great because it just shows that Privateer Press listens. But so like I said, it's fairly new, but Privateer Press does a good job of promoting it. So I think Privateer Press's aim is to make Iron Gauntlet the premier event for competitive Warmachine, and they do the live stream. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to check that out.
I did watch that. It's pretty cool. It's on Twitch too. It's kind of awesome.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can go pick up those videos and check them out. They stream, I think, 1 video around, or maybe 2. I think it's 1. Yeah. But it's pretty cool.
It's very cool. I mean, they format it and film it like it's like it's just really, it makes it feel very professional. It's like watching, some of the hardcore video game tournaments or other sporting events. It's really fun to see. So what is your favorite format? What do you like about the different formats, and what do you really enjoy to play in?
Well, I'm kind of traditionalist, so I'm kind of a Masters guy, but I'm getting more excited about Iron Gauntlet. So I think
what differentiates Masters from Iron Gauntlet? I mean, what's really the big difference there?
Like I said, Masters is a 2-list. It doesn't have a painting requirement. The big event for Masters is there's the Warmachine Weekend Invitational that is every year. And again, it's the same thing. It's a circuit of tournaments where you can qualify by either winning one of the circuit events, or I think there's a point system that also can qualify you in sort of through the back door. And it's a 32-person invitational only tournament that's held at Warmachine weekend. And that has been the most prestigious tournament for a long time. So I would say Iron Gauntlet's kind of like right on that peer level. But yeah, the Masters format's great. And then Masters this year introduced something new, which is really cool. Have you guys heard of ADR?
I have not. No.
So ADR is only available in the Masters format, and it stands for Active Duty Roster. And what they do is they take casters that aren't normally seen together as a pair, or maybe aren't used as much, and they give them 20 points of sideboard. Like Magic in the Gathering, you have a sideboard.
Yeah, right.
So if you play 2 casters that are on the ADR list, and the ADR list is usually only 4 casters per faction, then you get a 20-point sideboard, which is a big advantage in the game because you get to know what list your opponent is playing, and then you can side in stuff and out to make your list a little more catered to what you're playing against.
So if you play what is considered an uncommon caster combination, which I guess would be considered a weaker pair, you get essentially you don't get a point advantage per se, but you can customize your list to your opponents.
Exactly.
Nice.
And so what I really love about Warmachine is it's such a great thought exercise when it's just like building decks in Magic, or list design is so much fun. And then you add the ADR element, and then man, the world is your oyster. You can really put stuff on the table that you normally wouldn't see. So
it's smart, and also rewards the completionist, the guy who has a lot of figures, because he's got a good selection, which is nice.
Yep.
Very cool. Really cool. Now those are obviously some very competitive formats, and we also mentioned the Iron Arena, sort of the super, I guess, the more casual format. But do they have any really like over the top insane formats, like the sort of some of the crazy stuff that Adepticon does with team tournaments, or maybe some of the like the all night events they have at TempleCon?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So one of the best formats that they do that is if you just want to go goof off and have a good time, they have this format called Spell Draft.
All right.
So have any of you guys booster drafted in Magic?
I've seen it done. I've done it a couple times.
Yeah, almost everybody's done that.
Right.
This in Spell Draft, you pick your caster, and your caster's card is blank, and then they have a pack of spells that they pass out, and you pick one out of your pack, and you pass it to the left, and so you get to draft your spells. You're de-drafting spells. Somebody might be a Harbinger next to you, and you're like, no, you can't have X or whatever. So, but it ends up with some really goofy, broken stuff, and some pretty good stories. So
that's hilarious. So you can get a spell from like any caster on like Striker or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the really popular casters are like Witch Coven, because they get to a point deduction on their spells. So, there's a spell called Soulfire, which is 2 cost. It does it's POW 10 or POW 12, and if it kills a model, you get a focus back. And the Witch Coven, when they're in their perfect conjunction, get to reduce the spell cost of a spell by 1.
Right.
And I think it also gives them a boost to hit. So you literally can turn them into a machine gun where you just kill every stupid model that's within range of an arc node.
That's hilarious. That is fun. That's crazy. What are some of the other sort of bizarre formats?
They do a team tournament, which is overnight, which is I think it's a 3-man team event, which is pretty cool. They do a standard hardcore. Are you guys familiar with hardcore?
I am, but going for our listeners, why don't you kind of give them a quick overview?
Yeah, so hardcore is it's a single list event. You get one list, you're required to paint, and you get, I think it's 50-point lists, and you get 7 minutes to play your turn. So when they say hardcore, it means like you have to decide quick, act quickly, play quickly. So it's pretty fun format. It's hectic. It's hectic. Hardcore wears me out.
Yeah.
But it's
especially
fun.
being all night, you got to be double worn out by the 4 a.m. game. You got to be pretty wiped out there.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And then they're nonstop. Like we talked about it before, but they're nonstop running stuff in the Iron Arena. And then you just the skulls that you earn or the points that you earn, you can just get the coolest stuff. They have signed prints, like amazing art that are a lot of them are framed, and you can get measuring devices or custom this, or it's just dice, little metal focus tokens. I mean, they're
awesome.
The stuff you. Yeah, it's fun.
For those who don't know, so the Iron, what my favorite part about the Iron Arena is there's so many great tournaments, and Warmachine's such a competitive game, and it plays so cleanly that it becomes a competitive game very well. But a lot of folks, like me and my daughter, are much more casual Warmachine players. You throw me in with a Masters player, I'm just going to be done in 3 turns, or 2 turns. I'll be lucky to make 2 turns, to be honest with you. but what's cool is in Iron Arena, you just play and you get these skulls just for playing, right? And there's a little. They used to. I don't know if it still works this way, John. You tell me. But it used to be that you had this little card and you'd record where your opponent was from, and so like you get extra skulls if you played people from different states or different countries, and you get extra skulls if you played someone who had a different kind of list. So if you played more different kinds of armies, so it didn't matter if you won or lost. It was more encouraging you to play people from different parts of the world just to kind of meet folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you get these skulls. It's kind of like points at Chuck E. Cheese, and you go up and you can trade them in for cool, neat, hard to find or unique, rare stuff like you were talking about.
Yeah. Yep. You get points for playing with fully painted models.
Yeah.
Again, we're going back to that. I remember back in the day, and Craig, they hit the nail on the head. Warmachine was known as like the non-modeler, non-painters.
Right.
That was a long time ago.
It's not like that. There's beautifully painted armies out there that are just amazing. Yep. So it's great.
Very cool. Well, speaking of that, and you're right. I mean, since as the game has grown and the model ranges have grown and the size of the models have grown, I mean, you don't have to be a huge Warmachine fan, but you just got to follow some of the modeling feeds on whether it's Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and you'll see all kinds of great conversions and fully illuminated, automated, colossals and all kinds of amazing modeling going on in the privateer press world, which is fantastic. So speaking of that, do they have? They must. I'm sure. I know the answer to this, but is there a painting competition? And how's the field on that? And how many entries do they get?
There's a P3 painting competition, and it's a lot like a Golden Demon. The stuff that's submitted in there, I mean, you just go look at it and you're just like, wow, somebody spent a good chunk of their life doing this, and I have no idea how they did it. Like I look at it, it makes me cross-eyed. I just somebody did that with a paintbrush? Like, how do they do that?
So is it on par with some of the stuff at Crystal Brush that folks who go to Depticon would see? Is it that level?
Absolutely. Cool. Absolutely. It's one of the, I feel like it's one of the big events. Like Crystal Brush is probably the premier miniature painting event now, I would say.
Yeah.
But just below that, I would say, the contests at Gen Con, at Lock and Load, at TempleCon, they're all.
The stuff at Gen Con is crazy.
It is really good too, yeah.
I mean, it looks like real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Photoreal, right?
It's fun. It's fun. What I enjoy about Crystal Brush and Gen Con is you see all the different genres and miniature games together. And it's great because you get to see the amazing sculpts from the different lines, which is awesome. But then what's really cool, what I always enjoyed about Games Workshop Games Day and what I would imagine I would enjoy at Lock and Load, which is one of the reasons I want to go.
Well, no, there's an actual painting competition that Privateer Press does.
Oh, I know. Right.
Also.
Right.
That's
right.
what I'm talking
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
I think that's what John and I are talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about both, but I'm saying like when you look at models closely all the time, like, when you play a specific game, you get to know the models really, really well. And you think you kind of know all the different ways you could paint Stryker or Haley or pick your favorite caster. But then you go to like something like Lock and Load or one of these places where there's a huge painting competition. And it's the same freaking sculpt, but it's like a whole different model. It's like, the painting levels are insane.
Yeah, one of my favorite things at those painting contests is I love it when they pull bits from another game and I can figure out what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like playing Where's Waldo or whatever.
Exactly,
like you go,
right. Exactly. I love it.
I know it's such a dumb thing. I love it. I'm like, where'd that axe come from? Oh, I think that might be, so-and-so's axe. That might be Rathrock. I think they used Rathrock in a 40K miniature, or whatever.
Yeah. No, it is awesome to see that. So there's the painting competition, and they do like dioramas and conversions and all that stuff as well as.
Yep, they have all the different categories.
Yep.
Single model, diorama, battle group, warjack, warcaster. They do all kinds of cool stuff. But
sounds awesome. So tournaments, casual play, painting. Do they have any sessions or anything
Oh my gosh, yeah. That's the other thing that happens at Lock and Load that I probably should have mentioned that doesn't really happen at the other conventions is they have sessions. A lot of conventions you have like painting sessions or whatever. But my favorite sessions that are at Lock and Load is Doug Seacat will sit down and just talk the fluff with you.
Oh, cool.
And you can ask him questions, or sometimes he'll have an agenda to tell you about, this is why the Retribution is on the march, and he'll just kind of go through it with you. And then it is very interactive, so you can just ask him questions, or how do dragons work in the IK? Because they're they're a little different than in normal fantasy, and they're much bigger and scarier.
Right.
Yeah. So and so they have sessions like that, and then they do a lot of Privateer Press manufactures a lot of games besides just Warmachine and Hordes.
Right.
I mean that's their flagship, but you can do lots of level 7. You can check that out, or some of their Bodgers games, which are great palate cleansers and a lot of fun. And then of course they have the IKRPG, which is that's kind of a hoot if you're looking for something
I love that
a little
RPG.
relaxing.
Yeah. Did they show off any? Well, I'm jumping ahead, so I will not ask about new hotness yet. But I really, really, really want to ask about Undercity, but I won't. I'll wait. So cool. So they have a lot of different sessions. They talk about that just sounds awesome to be able to talk to the guys who are writing the background material and kind of ask questions about why things are the way they are. And do they give hints on the future, or is he pretty much keeps it to the past?
Oh, they're so good at messing with you. Like I talked to David Carl, who's like the lead designer, and I'll be like, this faction really needs this, and he will send you bad information like nonstop, but he'll also tell you the truth once in a while just to mess with you. So I remember one time he told me that Rock had Primal, and Rock came out I think a year or two ago,
right?
And I was like, trolls are getting Primal. Then I'm like, wait, no way, And so he just had me coming and going.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. And so sessions, obviously they're demoing new releases. We'll talk about those in a second. And this year it seemed like there was a good amount of cosplay going on.
Yeah, there was some incredible cosplay. I don't know if you guys saw it. You should check it out.
I'm looking at some pictures.
Yeah. There's this Alley Cat cosplay that did Allison Jakes cosplay that is just incredible. And, she was there signing autographs and stuff, and there were some pretty excited people.
Well, we happen to know 2 cosplayers in our local group, and in fact, they were Ariana and Holt, and they won the cosplay competition out there at Lock and Load this year.
I met them!
So, that's Jeremy and Megan. They're good friends of Craig and mine. We play with them every Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
they were great. Yep. I mean, there was a Harbinger there. There was a Pirate Queen Scar. It was a lot of fun. I'll tell you, these cosplay contests, there's always a Gorman.
Yep.
There is always a Gorman because I just think it's easy to do. So.
Right.
But it was awesome. There was the leader of the Widowmakers, the Cotter unit.
Yep.
The leader is like a girl with the big floofy hat. That she was there. So it was cool. Very
cool. So it sounds like they got the full gamut now. And you said attendance was pretty high. Like you said, about 1,000 players, plus or minus a few folks wandering around the place. So that's pretty.
Yeah, that's my super accurate.
Back of the envelope.
Thumb in the air.
Right.
Maybe.
So of course, another big reason to go to these kind of things, not only to obviously meet other fellow gamers who are just as passionate about your favorite miniature games as you are, but also obviously to getting close to the designers and the people who make the game, but also to see the new hotness. Like what was the new hotness they were showing this year at Lock and Load? What were the things that everybody were drooling over?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, they have the Hordes 10th anniversary set, which is Saren and Rias. So they are together now as one unit, which is really cool. Chromac now has Rathrock, which I talked about earlier. That's Madrak's axe.
Yeah, nice.
So now everybody's just like, God, what happened to Madrak?
That's a good story. We got to find out. That's one of my favorite things about the Warmachine and Hordes universe. Privateer Press is very unabashed about advancing the timeline.
Oh yeah.
So it's really fun to see.
Some might see brutal.
Right. So it's like, wait, Madrak's. So even from the beginning of Hordes, when I've been playing Hordes since it first came out, and so when I got Madrak, Trollbloods are my favorite faction for Hordes. And read about his axe and the overall idea that whoever wields it is going to bring doom, and you're like, what's going to happen? And it slowly advances the plot. And now someone else is carrying it. It's like, that's awesome. But what happened to Madrak?
None of us knows, but I want to know. I don't know about you, but I would like to know what happened to Matt. Plus, I love teasing my Trollblood friends. I'm like, Madrak's dead, right? And
his death's been exaggerated in the past. I don't believe it when I see it.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. But so the 10th anniversary set, it's beautiful. I actually bought that set.
Nice.
They had the special edition Haley 3.
Yes, my friend Jeremy Holt there, he came back with a Haley 3 set, and I was looking at it, and that's awesome. So for those who don't know, who haven't seen, this is the set that has 3 different historical versions of Haley, right? There's there's young Haley, there's sort of today's Haley, and then there's future Haley, right?
Yep. We like to call it Baby Haley and Grandma Haley.
Right.
And then, and then Haley.
And there's 3 different figures, and then because Haley's sort of power has always been like controlling the flow of time, she can shift between forms of herself mid-game.
Kind of. She actually summons a past echo of herself and a future echo of herself. So they come into play, and then they become a unit of 3. And it's it's pretty cool. And awesome. I will tell you guys, Haley 3 is probably the best designed Warcaster that they've ever done.
Beautiful model.
The models are fantastic. Yeah, they really are. I love the future Haley with her little goggles and everything. She looks awesome.
I love baby Haley because she just looks so angsty.
She does.
And I just like they captured that so well.
They did.
And her weapon is just like telekinesis, so she's literally just beating people up with her mind. And it's pretty cool.
So when you were saying best design, did you mean sculpt, or do you also mean the way they did the rules for her?
I mean, from art to sculpt to rules, like the whole package, it's just amazing. So the rules are great. She is not. I've played against her a couple times now. I don't feel like she's in any way unbalanced. She's very powerful, but she just does so many cool things. And it's all within the balance of the game, but it's just way outside their comfort zone. So, you've got somebody summoning basically additional warlocks or warcasters, into the game, and they somehow manage to keep that under control while still making it cool without making it too gimped, I guess.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, she's on my must-buy list for Gen Con there. I got to get that set. That sounds awesome.
Totally worth it. Just for the painting project. I mean, I just think.
The models are awesome. She's fantastic. So what else was the new hotness there?
They released Reckoning, which is the newest book.
Yep.
And I will tell you from my experience, I've been playing Warmachine and Hordes since Escalation. Mm-hmm. So that's the first expansion book that came out. This is I think the best book that they've released.
Really? Wow.
At least for me, from a standpoint, I'm a competitive player, so I like things that shake things up, and there's a lot of really interesting things that came out in this book. A new round of Colossals, new casters for everybody. There's a new Denny, a new Haley. My personal favorite, the Anston Durst, who's the new Protectorate caster, does something that Protectorate has never done before, which is charge forward and be in the middle of the board, basically be unkillable. Protectorate casters don't do that. They're all old men. They fall over dead. So.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that sounds awesome. So what did you like about the book beyond I've only seen sort of the tidbits that they've released on their website about some of the fluff and elements of the story. What did you think of the whole package of the book, including what they did with the story? Obviously no spoilers, but what they did with the story and the art and everything. You say it's the best, so it must obviously carry the banner well.
The art is amazing. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that the story, I love fluff, and I'm a huge fanboy, but I'm going to put a caveat with it. It's not really a novel, so it's hard sometimes. I thought it was fun, but anytime you start doing weird stuff with time, it gets kind of goofy. But it was still great. So I don't want to be a downer for anybody. This cool stuff still happens. I assure you, stuff gets blown up, which is as with every fluff book. So it's great.
What did you think about the new Colossals? Do they change the way people are going to look at Colossals, or is it pretty much just more cool of the same kind of thing?
No, actually they're all very different than their predecessors. So that's pretty exciting, actually. The Retribution one actually is a really stepping outside, because a lot of the way they made Colossals sort of work within the game is they made them kind of into gun platforms, so they shoot a lot.
Right.
And that particular Colossal just has all these defensive abilities, these fields you can power up that make it hard to kill, but it has no gun. But it does have a tractor beam, so you can move things in different directions. So I'm excited to get that guy on the table, because I think it's really an interesting step away from what most Colossals are.
He's more of a support piece. He moves other guys around.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. That's very cool.
Wow.
Really cool. That's great. So awesome. So obviously, new Warmachine and Hordes models, not a surprise. Awesome new book, not a surprise. What about on the board game front? So I don't know if you had a chance to play this. So obviously,
you're talking about Undercity, right?
I am. I'm really excited about Undercity. So when Private to Press announced this, I really feel that their best. So they've done 3 level 7 games, and I think the best of the 3 level 7 games is the second, right? Where you go into the base and you control a squad, and so it's and one guy's the overlord, so it's kind of 4 players versus an overlord. And Undercity sounds like a similar format, but now you're in the Iron Kingdoms. Did you get a chance to try it out? Did you see it? What was the reaction?
I did not get a chance to try it out, because that was one of the busiest demos there. It was hard to get in.
Well,
yeah, but it looked amazing. It's exciting. So I'm excited to play that. You're exactly right. Same kind of that Descent-y sort of feel to it.
Right.
Which is one of my favorite genres of games, actually.
Mine too, yeah.
If I can find the time to play it.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Awesome. So did you get a chance to see any of the sculpts? How do the new board game models sort of stack up? If you're a Warmachine player, do they look on par, or is it definitely a step down? Could you tell?
I couldn't really tell.
Okay.
So because they were unpainted,
Yep.
and then I was at a distance, so it wasn't.
All right.
I'm sure they're going to be great. Privateer Press has really, I would say, leveled up on making miniatures. If you look at some of their more recent stuff, it's getting. I mean, I think Games Workshop makes the prettiest miniatures on the planet, but I think Privateer Press is starting to close that gap, which is cool.
I would say that's fair. I think they did a good job. I was thinking more about like when they do if you look at like some of their early board games, like Grind, right? The miniatures in Grind were okay, but they were definitely not their miniature quality, right? But I think
they were definitely board game miniatures.
Yeah, I think when they did level 7, their miniatures got to a higher level. I wouldn't say they were quite Fantasy Flight, but they're pretty good. And I'm just curious to see if Undercity kind of took it to the next level and got closer to some of their tabletop stuff.
They didn't have any production stuff there, I don't think, yet. So
all right. Cool. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to that at Gen Con as well. That'll be in my must rush up and see what it looks like sort of thing. Very cool. So if someone's going to go to Lock and Load for the first time, what should they think about? How early is it tough to get a hotel? How early should they plan for it?
What are the practical considerations?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you get registered, and thank goodness Privateer Press, like 3 years ago, they had a major registration snafu where basically they crashed the Privateer Press servers. Nobody could register for anything. It was a disaster.
Yeah.
And they've now offloaded it to like a professional company now. So the registration couldn't be any smoother. I wish Gen Con would actually just contract with this company. You guys know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about, yes.
Yeah, I love Gen Con, but if you're not a veteran of registering at Gen Con, you're not going to get to do anything. So,
right.
So it's really important to get registered early. If you want to play competitively, I would say it's important to get registered for events because they tend to fill up. But I will also tell you, don't let that discourage you from going, because almost everybody gets into every event they want to play in, because a lot of people register.
And then don't show.
They register for every event.
Right.
And nobody plays in every single tournament. Like you have to be a little bit mental to do that. You have to sleep and eat and do weird things like talk to your friends. And, but so a lot of people will sign up for all the events and then they'll drop or not show up or whatever. And so lots of alternates get in. So you almost always get into as an alternate. It's very rare for you to miss an event that you want to play in. Except for maybe that first day, the early Masters on the first day. So they run 2 heats of Masters. They run one in the morning and one in the afternoon. That early one is kind of hard to get into because everybody's ready to go.
Right.
The other thing I will tell you, if you want to go to the store, get there early and get in line. Like 6 a.m. probably is a good time to start. The convention, the store usually opens like 9 or 10.
Wow.
And because they do run out of stuff fast. So if you're going to buy stuff, make sure you get in line on the first day. Just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Just wait in line. The line's actually a lot of fun. It's all people that are there for the same reason you are, which is to buy cool stuff. So you're all speculating. You might not even know what's in there. Right. I wonder if Epic Zal is there. There's all this like rampant speculation that goes up and down the line. You can just kind of watch it. As people play the telephone game, it's kind of fun. So
awesome.
If you're gonna go. I would say stay in a hotel that's nearby, and they cost a little bit more, but it's a lot of walking. So, I would recommend that. But don't be. I almost hate to say this, but I wouldn't be super afraid to leave my miniatures in the miniature hall, which is an unusual thing to say.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
But a lot of us just do that for the whole convention. We just I'm going to say this now, and somebody's going to get robbed. But we just leave our miniatures in our bags along the sidewall because there's people in there 24/7 playing games. And so, and the Warmachine community is so good about it. Yeah. Like we all kind of watch each other's back. So it's nice not to have to carry your miniatures back and forth.
Yeah, it was funny when I was our friends, the cosplayers, when Jeremy and Megan got back, I asked Jeremy, I said, how was it? Because this was his first year. He said he had a blast, obviously. And I said, what's the biggest difference? He said, the biggest difference is you can leave your bag out and there's like no fear of it getting stolen. I'm like, really? So I'm afraid to say that now in the air because now I'm afraid someone's going to do something like that. But it's just a much more, I don't know. he said it was like more intimate maybe than like Gen Con or Adepticon,
That
where
makes sense.
it's a smaller community, but it's a more tight community, which is neat. It's cool that they've still maintained that sort of that small community feel with such a large thousands of people.
Yeah, because
you're right.
At Games Day, you didn't have that feeling.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I will say I've participated in the Magic the Gathering community. I've participated briefly in L5R. I've participated in Games Workshop. And I've been to lots of different gaming communities, and the Warmachine community for me is by far the most mature and the most fun to be around. Like, they're just great. So if you're looking for kind of a mature place where you can play a competitive game if you want, or if you want to play a casual game if you want to, Warmachine is a great place to be.
Yeah. Well, it sounds that it's like if you look at it from the point of view of my old complaint, which again was a long time ago, it seems they've. I don't want anybody thinking, "Oh my God, he's like something that would not be permissible to say on the show." I'm just saying, like that team tournament you dragged me to was about 7 years ago.
Yes.
So just gonna put that out there.
And I did drag him Stubbs, but he had fun. Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, right. You just called him Stubbs.
No, Stubbs was one of the people running the tournament I dragged you to.
Oh, I love Stubbs.
Yeah, Stubbs is awesome.
Who doesn't love Stubbs?
Stubbs and Norbert, right? They're running that thing, and you're now telling him I dragged you there.
Well, you did.
All right.
But I didn't have a reason to be dragged until I got there. It was a very meta. It's a very meta situation. But anyway, it hasn't been like that in years. I wander through, at TempleCon. I wander through at Adepticon. Everybody's, having a good time. There's lots of painted models. It's very cool. Rafe talked all about the over 40 thing, which seemed cool. And no, it seems like a very cool, vibrant community is my point. It's just and it sounds like they've done an awesome job going from the page 5 raw, rip your raw to like a balance where you have like both styles of play are welcome is what I was going to say.
One of
can reflect nothing but positively upon Stubbs and his chosen game.
I love Stubbs so much. Oh my gosh, that's a story for another day, though.
It is.
But one thing I will tell you that's really interesting about Warmachine, and the thing that I probably appreciate the most, is when you play Warmachine's a very technical game, and so you almost need a social contract because it's so easy to cheat. Like it's very easy for people to fudge stuff. Right. And we have almost none of that in the game. I mean, we have people that get caught and they get dealt with appropriately. But it's at the highest levels. So at the highest levels of competition, if you go watch the games, people police themselves really well.
Yeah.
And they're really, really about playing a clean game and having a good time. And it's not like win at all costs. I mean, of course, winning's important to some people, more important to some people than others, but it's not at the cost of like a clean game. So a lot of the best players are confident enough in their own abilities that they sort of follow that social contract where they're trying to play a clean game versus trying to fudge things in your favor, which other games sort of encourage at times. So
that's great. That's awesome. And I think that what's really cool is you mentioned earlier even that they the communities sounds like they're very self-policing, which is fantastic. So that even distributed tournaments and following a lot of the folks from New Jersey that have now since spread all over the world to run these kind of events and hearing about how clean they're run everywhere, you kind of know that people are really earning their slots in these events. And then to watch them, be broadcast on the internet and again, to know everybody's watching. So since everybody's watching every move, there's really no way anybody can be exploiting anything. You really know that those who really want that competitive experience have it. And they really earn what they get. And yet there's still these great casual venues too for folks who just want to play, roll some dice and move some models around.
Yeah, if you want to tell a great story, Warmachine, you tell the coolest stories, right? You're like, my big stompy robot picked up this dragon and he threw it into their warcaster and knocked him down, and then my dude shot her to death. You're just like, that's pretty cool.
You get great visuals too. It's just a fun game. And speaking of all that, we will talk more about that in a few minutes. But first, we need to take a little break. Because apparently Hollywood and Total Fangirl want to talk about something or other.
Everybody wants to talk.
Right. So thanks, John, and we'll be right back to talk more with you about Warmachine in a few minutes.
Excellent. Thanks.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, Total Fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy, and Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakeland and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. And our shout out is, as always, to our wonderful supporters over at Patreon. Head to patreon.com/the D6 Generation and you too can support the show. We appreciate it very much. We have just returned from a vacation. We took a Disney cruise up to Alaska. So we got our little Disney nerd on for about a week. It was amazing. We'd never been on a cruise. We'd never been to Alaska. Both of these things were fantastic. I highly recommend them. We had a wonderful time, but didn't really expect anything nerdy to be a part of the experience other than the sort of Disney thing. You know, you had characters on the boat and it was, you know, kind of like going to an amusement park at sometimes, but without the horrible long lines and way more food to eat. So we did quite a few things. One of them, we went on an adventure in a place called Skagway, which was the northernmost part of our vacation. It took us from Vancouver up to Skagway, and then we popped back down the Alaskan coast back to Vancouver. And we went on a couple of trips. We did one where we took a bunch of Jeeps out into the Yukon, which was cool. And then we did another one that we just thought was fun because we like to zip line. It's something we do locally around here. And we thought, well, heck, zip lining in Alaska, that sounds pretty cool. It's supposed to be really pretty and stuff. So let's go see what it's like to fly along the treetops in Alaska. First of all, the entire place looks like an Ewok village. So that's cool. Especially the place we went to. They had these platforms, or all these little wooden platforms. And I would not at all have been surprised to see an Ewok roaming among the treetops. But as we got started and after our guides did a little safety check and told us what we were supposed to do and what we could and couldn't do, I zipped a couple of lines and then realized that my guide had this green helmet that was painted to look like Boba Fett. And I kind of did a double take. I said, oh my gosh, is that Boba Fett on your helmet? And he's like, yeah, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I said, that is the coolest thing ever. And then the other guy that was with us like, no, wait. And he tips his helmet down so I can get a better look. And his helmet is actually covered with symbols from Magic the Gathering. So we have two super nerds who are out here in the rugged Alaskan wilderness, guiding us among the treetops. So what the remainder of the adventure was us all having an amazing time, hanging, you know, upside down and stuff from the trees as we zipped along, and also talking about all sorts of nerdy stuff. The Boba Fett guy had been he'd been to Star Wars Celebration a couple of times, and we talked about San Diego Comic-Con because it was going on at the time we were in Alaska. And then we started talking about books and all the books we read, and turns out there's not a heck of a lot to do in Alaska a large part of the time. So these guys are like voracious readers. They've read all sorts of fantastic sci-fi and fantasy and paranormal stuff, and I had lists of books and we're talking back and forth. And by the end of it, as we're on the ground, I'm taking notes in my phone about titles that they think that I should read based on what we've talked about. And they're taking notes in their phones about what they think they're going to read now based on what I've said. So it was probably the nerdiest moment of our entire vacation. It totally cracked me up. And I love it when I go someplace and I have no expectation of nerdism, of geeks, of anything remotely like that. And suddenly, like, boom, out of the blue, there they are. So if you ever happen to go to Alaska and you go ziplining in Skagway, I think it was Alaska Excursions was the name of the company. There are two super nerdy guides. It was Sam and John, and you'll see them because you'll notice they're Boba Fett and Magic helmets. And if you're looking for some good books to read, these guys have tons of them. So nerds, we are everywhere.
Hello, and welcome to Geek Nation Tours.
Indeed, it's time to talk about our good friends over at Geek Nation Tours.
New website.
Yeah, they've just made it all fancy pants and whatnot, with pretty pictures. It's all brand new. But what you want to click on is that they moved it around. You click on the Tours link now. It's smaller, but it's right under the K in Geek. Mm-hmm. If you're having trouble finding it. And that shows you, oh, look at the big pictures now, Craig. There's giant. Oh, you got to head on over to Geek Nation Tours and check out the brand new website. It's very snazzy.
It is very
snazzy. So what I like about Geek Nation Tours is their intimate knowledge of all the little things geeky in any city you go to. So I think I mentioned in this episode, I reached out to Terrace and said, Terrace, I'm going to Vancouver. He's like, go to this bar. It's totally geeked out. It's awesome. It's the geekiest bar you'll ever be in. I'm like, how does he even know this stuff? But that's his job. He's the head of the geeks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great. It's a great way to go visit your favorite places around the world and go with other people who are gamers and geeks like yourself and see that great stuff. Craig, what's this thing called Geek Elite there?
The Geek Elite Tour is looking awesome. This is a tour it's called Touching the Stars. Mm-hmm. If you're interested in the space program or any of that they're talking about a cocktail reception and welcome dinner with actual astronauts and NASA people.
Yeah.
Visit to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the Von Karman Visitor Center, Spaceflight Operations Facility. So this just looks, the most iconic version of Star Trek, Starfleet Academy.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So you're talking about including the Leonard Nimoy Theater. It's just, and that's all in the first 2 days. This is the website is amazing.
Go to day 5 because day 5 you actually you get to ride the Comet Bomb. It looks like.
The Vomit Comet.
Vomit Comet.
Is what you're
yes.
referring to.
Or whatever. You get to get zero gravity.
Experience 0G.
That looks pretty insane.
Oh my god! The whole tour will rotate about the. Oh wow!
Oh my god! So anyway, see, this is the kind of stuff you can only do on a Geek Nation tour. Terrace takes you some of the great. That's a really cool idea, Terrace. Holy mackerel! Now I gotta sign up for that thing now.
Whoa! A night inside NASA's shuttle carrier aircraft 905.
I know, right?
Wow.
I don't care how much that is. I'm going to go do that. So it's great. These tours are around the world, whether it's Japan, whether it's Scotland, whether it's NASA in the United States here, whether it's going to Gen Con, whether it's going to, Gen Con's all booked for this year, by the way, whether it's going to the Star Trek sites in California, you name it.
Galaxy Far, Far Away tour.
Yeah. Good stuff. So head on over to Geek Nation Tours. Check out their brand new.
Terrace, why did you update the website?
It's awesome looking, and now you can see the tours even better. It's geeknationtours.com.
I'm Rafe Hollywood Granger, and this is the Hollywood Minute. Welcome to another edition of the Hollywood Minute. I'm your host, Rafe Hollywood Granger. You can follow me over there on the Twitter on the D6G Hollywood on Twitter. All right, for today's segment, I'm going to talk to you about Lord of the Rings living card game. So I had a chance to play a real mission. A listener of the show, Matthew Mangy, who I also bought a really cool painting of. You can check my Twitter feed for that. I bought it from him. It was a warjack and a little girl holding a daisy. Anyway, come to find out, he lives in Vermont, so he came over to game night, Tuesday night. We finally got together and we got a chance to play a traditional mission of the Lord of the Rings collectible card game, meaning not one of the Hobbit sagas. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun. Learned a lot. The mission was beating us up to begin with, and then we won in the end. And I learned a lot about deck building, and that prompted me to come home. I took out all my cards, rearranged all my cards. I kind of had some sets that I was keeping aside. I merged them in. Read a couple blog articles from Tales from the Cards on deck building, and it was really fun to kind of immerse myself into the hobby again, which included deck building, deck management, thinking of deck construction. And now I'm really ready to play it against a mission. The tough part is I built a deck to play with another deck versus just a solo deck, and so I'm kind of torn because I want to try it against a solo mission, but on the other hand, I don't want to make a deck just for soloing. Other than that, not going to Gen Con this year, and I'm okay with it. There was a year I wasn't going, and I was really bummed about not going. But this year, I'm not bummed. I don't know. Maybe I just need a break. Nothing wrong with Gen Con. It's totally fine convention. It's just me, I guess. Nothing I would really do out there differently. I do want to. I do like going around the vendor hall. I think I'll miss that. But the crowds were so tough to navigate that's a tough feat in and of itself. Other than that, getting the Scooter Gang up and running again for the 4th annual Scooter Ride and RPG Night. That's going to be over here on the Seacoast September 12th. All the scooters are already spoken for. We only have 8. The guy who loans them to us has a fleet of 8 of them. And for RPGs, we're looking at trying to maybe play an RPG-esque minigame, like either Gutshot maybe, or there's this new miniature game that's gotten everybody's fancy. I call it Frostfang, but that's totally the wrong name. I think it's called Frost Forge, and it's by Osprey, and hasn't even released yet. It'll release probably by the time you hear this, and it's gotten people really jacked up in my group. They're all excited. Apparently what you do is your war band is run by a wizard, and you can use any miniatures under the sun. So that's what's got everybody all excited. All right. Well, short Hollywood minute here. Really not much to say if there's not much to say. Been having fun. Been playing Arkham Knights with the Dark Knight on the Xbox. Been having a fun time with that. About 30% through that. It's a great game. I was a little concerned about the racing element of it with the Batmobile, but I've had no problems with it whatsoever. Now it is on easy mode, so maybe there's a lot of forgiving there, but sometimes in those racing games when they make me do time trials, I always flunk out, and that really irritates me, but I haven't had that problem at all. As a matter of fact, the Batmobile converts into a tank. It's hard to explain, but it does, and it works good, and you can shoot missiles and stuff. So, been having a fun time with that as well. All right, hey, summertime, go outside, enjoy a glass of wine, drink a beer, drink some water, have a margarita. Until next time, happy gaming.
This is the Dice Tower Network at Dicetowernetwork.com.
Hey, welcome back. And so we have John with us.
Yeah.
And Russ, of course, is a reformed fanboy of Privateer Press.
I don't know if I'm reformed.
And no, I'm just looking for a general adjective.
There you go.
And I have enjoyed the odd Warmachine game, although recently my stuff's been collecting dust. But that doesn't mean I don't have a billion things to paint and put together and look forward to the day when it makes a resurgence in my life. So, we used to do this a lot. We used to do the state of the game sort of episodes where we would talk about, updating if something new came out for something. So we haven't done that in Warmachine in a long time. There's been so many board games, demanding Russ's attention in particular that he keeps his toes in and he plays the game every now and then, but he hasn't been sort of finger on the pulse lately. And John, since he is, we've just established in Achievements in Gaming, very finger on the pulse. So we thought, why not leverage John's experience and his presence here and talk about Warmachine and Hordes and what's going on with all that. But first, John, we care dearly for our listeners, and we don't expect them to take anything at face value. So we're going to have to ask you for a little bit of your Warmachine and Hordes gaming cred.
Okay, well, that's fair.
I think it's only fair. So how long? When did you start playing Warmachine?
Escalation had just come out, which was their very first expansion. So I'm gonna guess that's right about 10 years.
Yeah, that was that's ground floor, all but ground floor anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Nice.
Cool.
Awesome.
Where were you coming from, and what attracted you? What made Warmachine the game that you sort of gravitated to?
Well, I just decided that I wanted to start miniature gaming again. So like everybody else, I started in GW. Spent a ton of time, doing fantasy, epic, 40K. Then I started having kids. And when you have young children, like that kind of stuff tends to go away for a little while. And
certainly does.
Yeah, I was coming back and I started hearing about this new game, and they were saying crazy things like, they're never going to obsolete your models, which, was a huge pain point. They're not going to retire your army. So if you buy a model, it's good forever. And that really, I was like, oh, really? That sounds awesome. And I started looking at the Steam Jacks, and I was like, oh my gosh, robots! This is, I was in. I was in at that point.
Mm-hmm. Now, what faction? What was your first faction?
Crix, actually, the undead.
Nice. Do you still play Crix today?
Not right now, no. I still have a lot of the old stuff, but lately I've been playing some Retribution, which was one of the newer factions that's come out. I guess it's not that new anymore, but it's they're elves. And then I also play a lot of Legion and Protectorate of Menoth.
Nice. And what keeps you coming back to the game? So you started it 10 years ago. And, what attracted you said, was the Steam Jacks and the fact that it was they had some promises in there that were probably a little unique for the game at the time. But what keeps you coming back to Warmachine time after time?
It's not solvable. So I enjoy a challenge, and this is a game that really, really, really engages you. You can go as deep as you want to go. You can play it, at a level where you just throw guys on the table and tell an epic story, which is great. And that's a lot of fun, but you can also go really down deep into the strategy and tactics of the game, and you can't really solve for it, but it's such a deep pool that I don't know, it humbles me all the time. I'm like, I have this all figured out, and then I just get whooped by something.
Right.
And I'm like, that was really cool, and so I live for those moments, but I enjoy building lists. It's a lot like, building lists in Warmachine reminds me a lot of building decks in Magic. There's some science to it, but then there's some art to it too, which is kind of fun. So, then the game has managed to stay fresh for me for like 10 years. And I think kudos to Privateer Press because they keep releasing new things. So,
right. We'll talk more about how they keep it fresh later because I'm interested in discussing that with you. But what kind of events have you participated in over the years? I mean, have you been a competitive Warmachine player since the beginning, or did you kind of put your toe in slow and then get competitive, or how did that go for you?
I would say I've been competitive starting in Mark II. So you guys are familiar with the Mark II release?
Yep.
Yeah, which was crazy. Like I'd never heard of a miniature company doing like an open beta for a miniature game.
Yeah, I was really impressed with that Privateer did that. We talked about it on the show too. I thought the way they handled the Mark II release was really unprecedented, and it should be a good model for other companies to copy because it went really well for them, I thought.
Yeah, but yeah, I've competed in events all over the place. So I've been, I didn't compete in Poland, but I went to Poland for Warmachine and Hordes. I've been to Ireland for Warmachine and Hordes.
Wow.
Yeah, conventions at Gen Con.
I think we learned this about an hour ago.
Yes, that's right.
What are you wowing about, Russ?
Well, it's still interesting.
I'm not saying he shouldn't say it. I think it's super exciting, and it bears repeating.
It does.
But don't, come on, be a professional. Jeez.
But I've participated in the Warmachine Weekend Invitational, which is you have to qualify for. I would say that that's probably the most prestigious of the tournaments, although Iron Gauntlet's really closing the gap. So that's also becoming very prestigious. I think I've participated in the Warmachine Weekend tournament twice. I've played it in basically all the major conventions. Adepticon, I think we talked about this before.
Yeah,
but,
right.
Played a lot of Warmachine. Played a lot of Masters.
Yep.
Masters is usually the thing they run on Sunday, which is they qualify people for. So it'll be like a top 16 to see who wins it all and that kind of stuff.
Very cool. So,
yeah.
So you've been through a lot of formats over the years. And what do you think's been the best change to the play formats recently?
It's just the evolution of Steamroller. Yep. I think Steamroller is the biggest difference between other miniature games and Warmachine and Hordes. Steamroller. Are you guys familiar with what Steamroller is?
I know, but for our listeners who don't, like, why would Steamroller differentiate Warmachine from other miniature games?
It's independently developed, and it's scenarios for the game, and they change them every year. And they've gone through a lot of really interesting, different types of scenarios, but they kind of force the action in the game, and they give you different objectives, which is great. So for me, I think that Steamroller, I'm not sure I could play the game without Steamroller, if that makes sense.
Really?
Because it adds, those Steamroller scenarios add so much to the game. I mean, they're just, from like trying to control the center of the board to, there's some lists that are advantaged because there'll be like a very narrow area in the center of the board that you want to get to and try and dominate. So those brick lists that have heavy hitters are maybe a little bit slower.
Right.
And then there's some that cause you to spread out. So you have to have reach and be able, there'll be like flags on both sides of the board where you're trying to cover that, and your big heavy brick that was really good in that center control, scenario suddenly is not mobile enough to compete in those other events or those other types of scenarios. So, it's great.
And so going into the different scenarios that are going to be there, so you can kind of try to so every year when they publish the new Steamroller scenarios, it's sort of like a new challenge to try to solve.
Yeah, and what's great is it just adds another layer of complexity to the game. So, a lot of people will think about, well, they might start off with, I like this list against Legion, And then you got to go, well, I like this caster with this list against this caster in Legion with this list. Mm-hmm. And then I like this caster with this list in this scenario. And so you have a lot of permutations that you're thinking about. So it's pretty interesting. And then you can put elements in your list that help shore up weaknesses or make you stronger in certain matchups. And I enjoy that part of it.
Cool. So what do you think they've tweaked in the last couple of years to really to bring it to the next level in terms of Steamroller, or how they've changed it recently?
Lately, for the last 2 years, Steamroller has really, really been pretty consistent. So they haven't made big changes to it. They've just been tweaking it to try and keep the games moving. So, like 3 years ago, there was this huge, 2012, I guess that's 3.5 years ago, Steamroller put in scenarios where it was very difficult to win on scenario and very easy to contest the scenarios. So what that created was all these gun lines. Because if you could not lose on scenario and you had better guns than your opponent,
right,
you would just shoot them off the table.
Right.
And so the next year they're like, okay, we got you.
Right.
And they made them they made the scenarios very winnable just by rushing, with lots and lots of dudes. And so now the gun line started to get sort of worked out of the meta by the change in Steamroller, and all of these dude spam run across the table at you lists started coming into play. Well, the third year, they kind of balanced both, and they're like, okay, we want to have gun lines and we want to have the dudes. Let's try to tweak the scenario some, and they're not really big changes, they're minor changes, but they affect sort of the flow of the game, and now we're at kind of a good equilibrium where I feel like the scenarios are pretty balanced. You can attack the game in a lot of different ways, which is great.
I like the leagues. This year's league had a thing where you can have a character that sort of levels up as you go. Have you tried these things out yet?
I've not played in any of the leagues, but a lot of the stuff is really cool. And I think my favorite part of the leagues is they actually mean something.
Yes,
so
exactly.
You get through the league, and then they give you a cool spoiler.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, that's cool.
It's cool. Yeah, so I love their organized play, and I think Privateer does a great job of fostering all kinds of organized play. But I think it's also fantastic they take tournament play so very seriously. And they work so hard to ensure that to fix some of the game balance issues. You're not even fix them, but just sort of make new challenges every year so that players are forced to evolve their play styles and their thinking. So I think it's really, really clever. And they still do the format where you can bring two lists to the event and then you pick which one you're going to fight with. Yep.
So there's 2 list events. There's 3 list events. I've seen crazy things done. In Steamroller, there's all these appendices, so you can do a 5-list event where you can each play each list once.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. I will say, I think probably the very best thing that Privateer Press does is they write very clean rules, which leads to very few arguments about rules.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for years I've said that's my favorite thing about Warmachine is I can play that game and I just don't get into arguments, which is really my favorite part. So let's talk a little bit about how the game's evolved over the years. You've been playing a long time. I started playing just before Hordes came out. So I started playing, and then I remember one of our friends had the beta for Hordes. You get the paper, you could play it. So it was kind of cool. Privateer even then was letting people try their rules out before they were published. And so I remember that very distinctly as I was playing my Warmachine stuff. I think Apotheosis had just come out, and so I've been through a lot of it too. But obviously you play a lot more than I do. And obviously there's I'm going to say recently, but I guess now it's 3 or 4 or 5 years now. But they came out with battle engines and colossals, and obviously those changes, and they've also, kind of the point size of games have gotten much larger. How have these changes been absorbed by the game over the years? Did battle engines and colossals materially change the gameplay style a lot, or is it still the game you know and love?
It's still the game you know and love, and I think battle engines didn't make that big of an impact. Very few of them are played a lot competitively. There's a few that are sort of outliers on the power curve, I guess you would say, so they're played quite a bit. But as far as colossals go, I'm super stoked about them because it sort of fulfills the promise of Warmachine. When you see Warmachine for the first time, you get excited about the big heavy jacks. And then a lot of times those big heavy warjacks, they're not efficient enough, so you don't see a lot of them on the table. But the colossals, they did a good job of building them so that, if you're washing the focus of your warcaster through this colossal, it's like a lever, because, focus is a very limited resource. So the colossals can be very, very good, but not overpowering at the same time. So you see more diversity in lists. So you even see some lists that are just like double colossal, which is just 2 ginormous robots.
Right.
Which I love, and I actually have already started designing. Like I designed a 3 colossal list with the newest expansion. They released a whole new line of colossals, so that's actually possible.
Yeah. For those who don't know, colossals are on a base roughly the size of a DVD, and they are about 6 to 8 inches tall. They're huge. So they're fantastic, and they really are the definition of a centerpiece model. Although having 2 would be insane, and they really. But even having I play with a colossal on a battle engine just because it looks cool. I'm sure it's not the most effective way you could fill the Signar list, but it's just lots of fun to see them rolling around the table.
I wouldn't say that at all.
So I have a lot of fun with that. And any other big changes lately? I know that the next book's going to have even another round of colossals.
Yeah. So actually, that book just came out.
Yeah. Right.
That's the Reckoning book, but I think. So what's really cool is the game was originally designed by Jason Souls, and then he moved to help with the IKRPG stuff.
Right.
And so DC came in and started designing. So DC has been there since the beginning of the Mark II field test.
Right.
But the stuff that he designed is just now starting to come into the meta, and it's kind of neat to see kind of a different take or perspective. So because that's how far back the design cycle is. You know, they're 4 or 5 years ahead typically.
Right.
So, like the stuff that just came out in the last Hordes book and this most recent book if you know DC well, that's David Carl. He's, I think, the lead or one of the lead developers.
Yep.
You can kind of see his fingers all over it, and you're like, oh, this is really cool. And what gives me a lot of hope is I think Haley 3, and I think I said this in the other segment, is the best design caster that they've ever done.
You mentioned that, and we didn't talk about it deeply, but what are the reasons you think Haley 3 is so great?
She just works. She's great, and it's very complex. So she's got these spells where she summons a past copy of herself, like an echo is what they call it, and a future copy of themselves, and they each have their own spell list, and then she has her own spell list. So if you can imagine, it's like having 3 warcasters on the board.
Yep.
But they managed to make it balanced and dynamic and fun, and it doesn't take away from your opponent's enjoyment of the game. So sometimes they design really good stuff like a Denegra or a Sorsha or a Haley one, and they're just fun killers because they just do stuff and like you're disabled for a whole turn and you get like time walked or whatever.
Right.
But this caster does a lot of stuff, has a lot of options, but you're both sort of engaged in the game. She never like makes you take a turn off,
right?
Which I appreciate. So yeah, it's great.
So they're getting better at finding those combos that just weren't fun for your opponent and let me just ask you about the Colossals. So I feel like I was really nervous when the Colossals came. They'd be sort of the must-take unit, and you wouldn't be able to do well without one. But I've noticed at the few tournaments, one of them at Gen Con or TempleCon or one of the other events, I love to walk through the Privateer Press, the Warmachine tournaments, and just look at all the amazing models and see what's out there. And it seems like I see roughly 50-50, like every other table's got a Colossal on it. So is it pretty much Colossals are great, but you don't need to take one to do well?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a real testament to the balance in the game. So you see all kinds of stuff. You see people that play Colossals, people that don't. You see lots of guys. You see a mix. There'll be a Colossal and some guys, or a Colossal and some heavies, or it's in a really good spot right now.
Cool.
Yeah, I think the same.
Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like they're still rolling pretty well. So what's in the latest book? That's really the hotness right now.
Reckoning, it's definitely the Colossals.
Yep.
And then the new casters. Every time you get new casters, it's I think that's I keep saying this, one of my favorite things about Privateer Press games is every time you get a new caster, it just a lot of times does a lot of different stuff with stuff you already own.
Right.
So you're just like, wow, it's like opening a new Christmas present that also freshens up the rest of your army.
Yeah, one $20 model changes your whole force, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah. So yeah, the new casters are great. I think every caster in that book is considered, talking to the powers that be, I guess, or people that rate such things, like at least a B, which means that it can be played competitively and do just fine. So
cool. That's awesome. That's good news. What kind of things do they do to the new Colossals to make them different yet compelling?
Well, it just depends. All the factions, they did some different things. So the Cotter Colossal is kind of cool. It's Victor. He's got a range 20 gun.
Oh, wow.
That's inaccurate, but it's a 5-inch template that has 3 different ammo types. So you can drop rough terrain, or you can light stuff on fire, or you can flare targets. And flare is like -2 defense to make the rest of your army hit better. So it's pretty cool. And then it's still just punches stuff to death. I think my favorite design space for the new Colossals, though, is the Retribution one.
Mm-hmm.
They've got the Helios, and it's the first Colossal that has, not really a gun that does anything. It's got a tractor beam.
Okay.
That lets you move a model, and you can fire it up to 3 times in a turn, but you can move a model 3 inches with it, and you can move it in any direction. So normally, when you move another person's models, it's very linear, directly towards something that you're, like if you're pulling it in with a tow cable, for example.
Doesn't the Merc Colossal have the ability to pull you in with its anchor or whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But this Colossal, like non-linear movement, like I can move you to the left 3 inches, and then forward 3 inches, and then to the right 3 inches. Like I can actually walk you around a wall.
Oh, that's
kind of
awesome.
Gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't do any damage. So you're like you have like a third of your army in something that's not actively doing
totally
damage.
tactical. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but what I really like about it is it also has a lot of defensive abilities. It's probably the most defensive of the Colossals, so it kind of gives you this rock hard piece you can kind of put in the middle of the board and say, "Deal with me," and then you can also be manipulating like other things. I don't know. It's good design, and it's not something I would have guessed could have been done. If you had told me before the book came out, we're going to build a Colossal with no guns that do any damage, you'd have had a hard time convincing me that it would be playable competitively.
Cool. So let's back up a second and talk about what you like about the game, and I'll chime in too. So there's sort of 3 things I think that make a miniature game fun to play, and that's the rules, the story or universe, and the models. And I just want to ask you, like, what has kept you coming back? What are each of these 3 areas do you really like and find compelling and keeps you in the game? So first, the rules. What do you think the best things are about the Privateer Press rules? I think I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Yeah, they just make for a very clean game.
Yeah, that's my feeling too. They're the cleanest miniature rules. I've said it before. It's such a clean game, and it's so easy to teach.
It's very easy to teach, and yet it's very deep at the same time.
Yeah.
But you just don't have arguments about very many rules. Occasionally, because if you think about the number of releases they have, there is some interactions that you have to look up at times, but it's very few and far between. And so then, and the other thing about the Privateer Press game is it tends to attract a little different type of gamer. It's typically a little bit more mature gamer. And so the games are a little more relaxed. Even when you're competing, it's still really chill, which I appreciate very much. So,
well, that's awesome. And I think one of the things I think is cool about the rules is A, how clean they are, and B, also, like, yes, there's a few special rules for Colossals, and there's a few special rules for battle engines, but essentially, every time I come back to the game, I'm not like blown away by some whole new rule set. Since Mark II came out, I feel like I can go down and I can play against a new army. And I don't really know all the units and what they do, but I can still play the game and understand all the rules. There's not some new mechanic that just jumped into the game. So I don't know if you found that to be the case too, but I feel like it hasn't materially changed. It doesn't radically change from, book to book, if that makes sense.
No, it's still Warmachine, right? Yeah. So, I guess I draw a comparison to Magic. You know how Magic sometimes introduces like a new keyword, flank or something or whatever. Warmachine will introduce a new keyword, but when you play Magic, you still know how to tap lands and spend mana. Same thing in Warmachine. You still know how to allocate focus and spend it. Or, if you're playing Beasts, how to force them and then reave their fury. So the basics of the game are very simple. Well, the strategy, not always, but
right.
All
right, so let's talk about the fluff. So what do you like about the universe, either Hordes or Warmachine or both?
I just love that there's like big stompy robots, big beasts, dragons like punching each other. I love the fact that they do things like power attacks. So they'll put somebody in a headlock, or they'll basically slam over them, or they'll two-handed throw them into somebody else. Like, it's very evocative and very cool. And then fluff-wise, they have a lot going on. So they have the big evil empire. The Crix is sort of always the people hiding in the shadows, sort of moving things. And I think probably the most interesting thing about the fluff is how they imagine a dragon.
Yes.
And a dragon is way more akin to a god in this world than it is to like a physical beast.
Yeah, what I liked about it was radical at the time. I think other games do it now, and Craig, you can jump in correct me wrong, but coming from Games Workshop, the universe never advanced.
Right. Yeah.
And what I loved about Warmachine is every book has evolving story. And it's a little weird to maybe fight, old Striker against young Vlad, but P3 versus P1 or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, it's just so cool to see the story evolving and seeing your favorite characters and see their characters evolve and the characters mature and change over time, and you really become very attached to the storyline and the characters. So I really like the idea that they're not afraid to go forward in time and tell a cohesive story across the years.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and they even killed their first character, so that was cool.
Uh-oh. Yeah, spoilers.
What was that?
What's that? It was Sturgis, the one that came with tactics.
Yeah.
So so they actually killed him, and so his the equivalent of his epic version is Sturgis, who works for Crix, because they reanimated him. So.
Yeah. Yeah, they came out with two models, right? There's Signar Sturgis, and then there's Sturgis for Crix, right?
And that came out when Tactics came out.
Yes.
It? Yep. Like they
Absolutely.
knew. Yeah. So that wasn't a surprise.
Yeah, that wasn't really a spoiler. And it was cool about it was when Tactics came out from the Kickstarter, you got all these cool miniatures that also you can play in Warmachine, which is awesome too. So so what about the models themselves, the sculpts and the way they package? And one thing that's changed radically over the years. A little bit that was kind of something they had to kind of change their thinking on a little bit was originally Privateer Press was only metals, and they were very proud of it. In fact, in the original page 5, it would say, if you don't like it, go play with plastic. So that was kind of their original one-liner. But of course now
Full metal fantasy.
Yeah. Now, of course, they're making their new cool hybrid plastic resin, whatever it is, but they come all no sprues or anything. What do we like about the models, how they're bundled, how they sell, how they assemble, how they look? What do you think?
They're actually taking a step forward too. The newest Colossals, I believe, are going to be model kits like, full injection molded model kits.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so they're actually taking another step forward. So they're learning and growing. I would say 5 or 6 years ago. 5 or 6 years ago, they're sort of an old school miniature company where they were spinning lead.
Yep.
And they've just grown a ton. So,
those new Colossals, how are they going to be different than the old Colossals? They, in terms of assembly.
They're actually going to be like an injection molded kit with bits and pieces, so that you can build either of the Colossals out of the same kit.
All right, cool.
That's what I'm hearing. So,
nice, very good. So I can choose to build a Stormclad a storm. You know what I'm talking about.
You can choose to build a storm wall or the new lightning thing. I forget, a hurricane.
Yep. So it's kind of like the Jacks when they switched over to multiform Jacks in a single box, right?
Yep, exactly. Yep. So, but it's going to be the injection molded plastic. So have you seen the Convergence battle engine?
I have, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that kit is beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that's sort of where they're going. And I'm excited for them to get there.
Cool. So. All right, so now I thought it'd be fun, since you are sort of a pro player, if you will. Not sort of, definitely a pro player. I think it's always fun to talk a little bit about the meta. And I wanted to run through each faction and have you tell me, are they competitive or not? And if so, what's their meta right now? Like who's the go-to caster, or what's sort of the combo that's sort of like, oh, here we go. It's, Haley with 2 Colossals or whatever, what I mean, whatever the combo is. Sound good?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Khador. What is
Khador?
Go ahead. What
I was going to say,
go ahead.
Khador is probably a little lower on the competitive faction, but I want to make sure this is a very clearly made point. When I say it's a little lower on the competitive tree or whatever, it doesn't mean they're not competitive. So a person at the very bottom of the list, for example, minions would be at the bottom of that list just because they have the least number of releases.
Yep.
Can win an event.
All right.
So it's not like they're not competitive. They're just a little bit lower on the scale. But Butcher 3 really came in and shook up that faction.
Yeah.
And he's just awesome because he just kills everything. He's sort of an army unto himself. So it's an interesting balancing act because you're trying to get Butcher in there to do work.
Yep.
But at the same time, not get him killed. So, because like in chess, if you lose your king, you lose the game, which we all know.
Right. And is Butcher OP, you think, or did it give Khador the shot in the arm they needed to be a go-to faction now?
I wouldn't call him OP, but he definitely bends the meta in that there are some lists that have a lot of trouble dealing with him.
Okay.
Because especially if you play like a lot of heavies and he gets a hold of them, like he can kill them pretty fast. So.
All right. So Butcher 3, watch out.
Yeah.
What about Signar?
Signar is pretty close to the top of the heap right now.
Really?
They are so good, and a lot of that's just on the backbone of Haley 2.
Yep.
And the great part about Haley 2 is there's like a million ways you can build her. and they're all good.
Yeah.
So I've seen Haley no arc node, Haley with an arc node, Haley with a Stormclad, Haley with a Prontoclad, which is you take Stormblades and put a Jack Marshall Stormclad on it.
Oh, nice.
I've seen Haley with a single Colossal, Haley with a double Colossal, Haley with Pirates, just dude spam.
Right.
So yeah, they're really good, and they have Signar is really blessed with a lot of other really strong casters as well, like Siege. So you probably Haley 2 and Siege are probably the two most popular.
All right, cool. What about Retribution?
Retribution is a little bit lower on the scale again, but still very, very strong. Viros 2 is probably their best caster. He takes a ton of Griffins, which is just like a little 4-point jack with a shield and a halberd, but he has a spell called Synergy, so every time one of those jacks hits something, the next jack to activate gets a +1, cumulative +1/+1.
Oh, nice.
So if you have enough of them, I mean, they have a ton of boxes and pretty good defensive stats, so they're tough to chew through quickly or effectively. So they start to really overwhelm you in the attrition. So, and then they have
babies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Retribution has my favorite caster in Ron, who just kills other casters dead.
Yeah,
who's that one again?
Ron. He's the Battle Mage caster.
Craig's taking
Ron.
notes.
Oh, I have him.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. He's by far my favorite Retribution caster, and he's the one that I try to champion whenever I can.
He's also a really cool pose as well. I like his pose a lot.
Yep. But he does a lot of battlefield manipulation, so he can push models off his jacks with a force push. He can, slam over with a spell, or he can push and pull with his mages. Like, he's just awesome.
Cool. All right, your starter faction. How's Crix doing?
Crix is, again, near the top of the heap. If Signar is at the top, Crix is 1A, or maybe Crix is at the top, and Signar is 2. And but yeah, Crix is just great. And the best part about Crix is you can play a lot of different casters with them. What makes Crix good is their troops are so good, and they come screaming across the board. And I think the army is designed to where if you can get half of your troops across the board through the guns and everything else, that they do enough damage or work to sort of win the game. So, and then the different casters do different things to help with that. Like Lich 2 will always be popular, and he's really good. And then the Denegras are always ridiculous. There's a new list right now. You'll probably see a lot of Body and Soul. It's a theme list.
Yep.
I don't know if people I guess theme lists are lists that Privateer Press publishes where you take certain models and you're not allowed to take certain models, and then you get some benefits. So
are theme lists pretty prevalent at competitive events?
They are. They're really starting to get picked up, particularly theme lists that give you free points.
Yep. I liked the addition of theme lists because I thought they were a cool way to encourage building, quote unquote, a fluffy army, i.e. an army that matches some of the stuff that happens in the story. That would be like Striker with mostly, Storm Knights and that kind of thing. But it also, so while that list combination itself may not be the best list, then they give you a little bonus here and there that supposedly makes it competitive. Are you found that to be the case?
Yeah. But I mean, as with everything, there's outliers, right? So some of the theme lists are really, really, really powerful and good. Some are not as powerful, and there's a lot in the middle. So.
Yep. Cool. All right. So that's Crix. What about Menoth? Those flaming guys always give me trouble. I don't know.
They're pretty good in the meta right now. They're struggling a little bit. There's a big boogeyman in the meta named Bradigus, who brings all the stone guys, and it's actually a very, very tough list for Protectorate to deal with. You kind of have to build very specifically for it. But Harbinger and Menoth will always and forever be a powerhouse. So she's really strong. And then they have Krios 1 and High Reclaimer, who is probably my favorite caster. And he makes all these like ash clouds to block line of sight, and fundamentally changing the game by blocking line of sight to your entire army every turn.
Big deal.
Is very powerful.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. What about the Mercs? They used to be sort of, I don't know, have they always been strong, or did it take them a while to get strong? I think now, I've heard they're pretty good now.
They're very good right now. They used to be a doormat, back in the day. I mean, way back. I'm talking like when Russ and I started back in the day.
Right.
But now they have their Colossals, and both their Colossals are amazing. The Galleon and the Earthbreaker both completely changed up those factions, because a lot of the Merc Jacks, I'll be honest, were not great. Like, they were okay. But the Earthbreaker with Thor, who's a little solo, that can tune it up, which gives it an extra dice on all of its attacks, either to hit or to damage. So if you're shooting guns, and then it's guns knocked down too. So it just blows stuff up.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. And then the Galleon, we talked about the big drag shot and long range guns. It's awesome.
It's funny, when Mark II came out, I thought knockdown was going to be not as big a deal, but it's still a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it turns out when you're on your butt, you get shot pretty easy because you can't get out of the way of the bullets.
Yeah. All right, now my other faction that I own 2 Warmachine factions. I have Signar, and I also recently, right when Convergence came out, I jumped in and got the Maiden of Gears theme force. How are they doing?
They are pretty good. They're a little bit lower on the scale again, only because they have a limited number of releases. It's a very, very small faction, so it's trouble. It's tough to surprise your opponent,
right?
Because they don't have that much, but they have some of the best recursion in the game, which is great. I mean, they're just making dudes over and over and over again.
Right.
It's not unusual for them to make 6 guys in a turn, so the first 6 guys you kill of theirs doesn't add up to anything.
Right.
Which in the early part of the game, no big deal. At the late part of the game, big deal.
Right.
As you have less and less attacks. And then they have Lucant, who's probably their most successful caster. And he just is very, very good against gun lines. Like, it's very difficult to shoot at him effectively at all with anything. So,
cool.
Very strong.
All right, let's shift over to Hordes.
Okay.
What about the Trollbloods? How are they doing?
The Trollbloods are as good as any Hordes faction has ever been. They are so good right now.
That's right, baby.
From top to bottom. I mean, they can play anything. And for a long time, it was people would lament trolls. They'd be like, he's got such sweet models. I mean, look at this guy. He's carrying a pig, and he's got a cigar in his mouth. Like, how cool is that?
Right.
But I can't do anything with them because they're slow and mopey. But not anymore. Like, there's just so many good, like every troll caster, almost every troll caster is good right now, except for maybe one.
Yep.
Out of their 13 casters.
Who do you think the weak one is right now?
Gunbjorn.
Gunbjorn, yeah.
And he still might be good because they have some new releases like their Highwaymen. Have you guys seen those guys?
I have. They look awesome. They're so cool.
They're awesome. They have the 2 pistols. Well, Gunbjorn has snipe, which makes those guys actually really, really gross.
It's neat how they can. That's what's so cool about the system, right? So the warcasters can get. A new warcaster can bring units that formerly were not so great, because now whatever spells the new caster has can augment the unit. Or new units can make a spellcaster better who maybe wasn't before because there wasn't that unit type they needed. So that's a good example of that. So it's really, they've got a really interesting way they can keep the game in balance or fix things as they go on without changing the old stuff, just adding new stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool.
I think the troll list that you'll probably see a lot of right now, Elementalism, which is a theme list for Calandra, where she just takes all the light trolls.
Yep.
And she gets a 1-point discount. So you actually see lists now, a 1-point discount on light trolls. People will literally take 11 light trolls and get, like 11 free points in their list.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal. I mean, the list does a lot because those light trolls, those light troll war beasts all do different things. So.
Right. Very cool. All right, what about how's Circle doing?
They're near the top.
Yep.
Like they're in that 1A discussion. Morvana 2 is incredible, and Bradigus is incredible, and Kruger 2 is incredible. Like their lists are great. And Circle tends to circumvent a lot of rules with their shifting stones, the ability to place models without having to actually go through things. So
my 12-year-old daughter plays Circle, and I have a hard time with her. She's very good with them. She's got them.
Yeah, they're very, very strong right now. And they have a lot of people on the bench they can go to too. They're very deep with what they can play competitively.
I like them. I like their theme too. I just like how they work. They do break a lot of rules, if you will, but it's really cool the way they do it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What about Scorn? One of Craig's old factions.
Yeah, my first faction.
Yeah.
I would say Scorn is right in that Cawdor wagon.
Right.
They're struggling a little bit, but they have some hope on the horizon. I think the new Artist Sentinel, when it comes out, will be really good for them. Have you guys seen the Artists?
No.
I haven't.
They're these
look.
giant beetle-type bugs, and they have one of them's got a poison gun that does a lot of damage. And the really cool thing about it is it has this hardened carapace rule where if you shoot it, it gets +4 armor, and it starts at armor 19. So, like, they just sort of win the gunfights, which is awesome. And I think that's really going to mix it up for Scorn quite a bit because they'll have this good ranged game that they can go to because they have got Snipe in the faction with Far Strike on their Raider, stuff like that. So it should be interesting to see where it goes. And then they released a new Theme Force, which has got some interesting stuff in it. The new Morgul 2 Theme Force takes away advanced deployment from your opponent.
Oh, wow.
So they literally lose if they have anything in advanced deployment. They just lose it.
Lose it. Wow. That's hardcore.
Lose it? Like,
yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound right.
Yeah. Nope. You don't get to advanced deploy. You get to be way back there with everything else. So.
Wow.
Oh, you lose advanced deploy.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Not the
You
model.
don't lose
just
the actual model.
Just the ability.
No.
Yeah,
no, gosh, that'd be really
okay.
gross.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I was going to the website to check out the Beetle thing, and instead I've discovered the Meat Thrasher.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a battle engine for the pigs.
It looks awesome. It's like a giant death wheel for the pigs.
No, it really is. And if it gets into troops, it completely mulches them. Like the rules, it does very much what it looks like it should do, which is run over troops and kill them.
It looks kind of like a variant of the Giblet Grinder. It kind of looks like some variation on that. It's pretty cool looking. Anyway, okay, well, I didn't mean to distract us. We can talk more about that when we get to minions. All right, what about...
Not a problem.
What about Everblight?
Again, another faction that breaks a lot of rules.
Yep.
Very strong faction. You see a lot of Veil too. She just has an answer for everything. She has Purification and a very strong theme force. Her theme force is a 1-point discount on heavy warjacks, or war beasts, I should say. So a lot of times she'll be playing with like 5 or 6 free points in her list, along with her strong spell list. And then Everblight also has a ton of great casters. Lilith 2, Vagrosh 1, you'll see Abby 2 is amazing. Yeah, and they're super fun. And they tend to play very, very beast heavy, which is interesting. They use very few troops.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, they're very cool. I like their they have all the flyers, which makes them really cool.
Yeah.
All right, what about so how are the minions doing? They were, as you mentioned earlier, they're one of the weaker factions, but they're getting stuff. Like the Meat Thrasher looks pretty good.
Yep.
How are they hanging in there?
They got a new release, I think, that's going to be faction defining for them. Croak Raiders that just came out.
Yep.
I think they release in July, and they're these little frog guys that have these spears, but it's actually a good example of some of the new mechanics that they're sort of working with. So these guys, they carry around these gourds of oil, and then they have these like flaming spears that they chuck or throw. I shouldn't say chuck, that's bad.
Yeah.
But and they can choose to throw one or the other. But if something gets hit with oil, when it gets hit with a flaming spear, it gives an additional dice on the damage roll or boosted damage.
Interesting.
Roll. Yeah, so they can like shoot heavies with them.
So it's a 2-part combo. You got to hit him with the oil first, then you hit him with the spear.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
But you can have one guy oil like a heavy thing, and then the other 9 shoot it with the spears.
Right. And
they blow up heavies. Like it's kind of cool.
Wow, that's awesome.
Or they can just shoot a bunch of random guys. So they're very, very good. But yeah, one of my good friend Ricard from Sweden, he plays minions exclusively, and he's well known on the competitive scene. Cool. So and he does just fine with them.
Oh,
so
cool.
like he doesn't ever feel like he's so disadvantaged that he should just give up minions, and he likes winning as much as the next guy.
Very cool. So it seems like even we've been kind of rating the factions here a little bit, but that's not really fair because they're all with the right player and the right mindset. Any of these can be powerful, but it's just sort of interesting to hear what the meta is right now, what the hot stuff is. So what about this Meat Thrasher? You got to tell me something about it. It looks cool, or Meat Thresher, I should say.
It's got some pretty cool guns, but the big thing it does is when it runs into troops, I think
it's over them?
Yeah, actually I think it can trample over them, but yeah, I can't remember the rules for the Death Wheel, but I actually walked by a game at Lock and Load. Will Hungerford was playing it, and I walked by and there was a ton of troops, and I walked by a little bit later and they were all gone, and I was like, what happened? And he said, well, the Meat Thresher got in there and it killed them all.
It drove through and ran them over. It's got this giant wheel in the front just covered in blades, and it looks like it's clearly intended to just run over dudes. It looks awesome. All right, cool. Well, John, thank you so much for taking the time to fill us in here on the latest what's going on in Warmachine Hordes.
Excitement.
Yeah. I got to go play more now. I'm going to challenge my oldest daughter to another battle. So, John, and thank you also for joining us on the show this week. Really, really appreciate it and taking the time to bring us up to speed of Lock and Load and share your time with us on Achievements in Gaming and talk about Game of Thrones. If folks want to track all the exciting things you're up to, where do they go?
MuseOnMinis.com.
Cool.
Yep.
And that's your awesome podcast, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually it's not even just one podcast. So we started off as one podcast, but we have a lot of friends that got interested in podcasting. So we would just talk to them about, well, here's what you do to start. And then I finally would say something like, well, one of them I was like, you don't have to set up another website. If you want to just put your podcast on our website, that's fine to save you the trouble.
Nice.
With the idea being like we're all about the same subject. So if we're all drawing together and we build different audiences, the audiences will mix naturally, and it's good for us. So now I think we have 12 or 13 different podcasts about Warmachine on our website.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, a lot, and we have videos and articles that go up almost daily. There's a ton of Warmachine information there, and it's a lot of fun to do.
There
Great.
you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, John, thanks again for
All of your Warmachine needs.
Yeah, it's just
And
awesome.
all those cool tokens and the templates and everything.
Well, you
Muse
guys,
on
we
Mini.
should say Muse on Minis. You make all kinds of cool stuff over there too.
Yeah, we love the game, so we just make a ton of really cool stuff. We make
And then
faction
everybody
tokens.
copies it.
Right.
That's true, but that's okay. That's a sign that you're doing a good job, right?
Right, yeah. The most sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah, I will say that the biggest difference between our stuff and most of the stuff you see is we invest in a lot of art for our products.
Your stuff is beautiful.
It is.
Yeah, because we're more for men function, I guess, guys. But we want it to look cool. You know, we like cool
absolutely.
stuff.
Clearly made by people who love the game first.
Yep.
Yep.
And so if you come over to Muse on Minis, there's a link for the store there. You can go to museonstore.com and just check out some of our stuff. Just look around. You'll see we do lots of neat, innovative things.
And I got to throw this out too. I bought and I own on my own. You guys didn't send me a review copy. I just bought it because it was awesome. Because Rafe had a set. I think Rafe. Here's an example of giving away stuff helped. So I think Rafe ran into you guys and you gave him the objective zones, right? Those cool
Oh, they're beautiful.
And I had to go buy one from you guys because they're awesome. Because we were, Warmachine, there's so many events where you have to control, a 6-inch circle in the middle of the table or something. And so we all resort to these little metal rings, which just look ugly. And these are these great little, almost, little like mini mats that are beautifully artwork colored, like they're little brick, little stone areas or whatever. And you just put them on they just look great. They're really nice looking objectives for the table.
Yeah, they actually blend in with the table, and they're actually on like a very thin mouse pad material, so they don't slip and slide.
Yep.
And they're also very thin, so it doesn't interfere in your game in any way.
Fantastic. You get the trench templates over there too. I'm looking at those. Those are great because that one league had a bunch of them in there. That's awesome.
They look the one thing that I always complained about Rafe's games was that all of his filthy little felt zones ruined the look of the whole table. He's got all his painted models and all cool terrain, and then he would just throw down these
felt square
felt things. And then one day he just showed up out of the blue and had these beautiful mouse pad material, like with all the artwork, and I was like, oh my god, I want to play again just because of those.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
That's so many of your products, John, have that exact effect on me. Like, I have to play the game now because it has cool stuff again.
And it was great.
I appreciate that.
And it was great because my daughter, we hadn't played an objective mission like that because I didn't want to. We have a beautiful little table at home, and I didn't want to put the rings on it. So when I got your stuff, I put it in the middle. I said, let's try this, Rose, and I put the little thing in the middle. She's like, wow, this totally changes the game when you're trying to get into the center of the table. So she totally appreciated sort of a steamroller format right there with it. So it definitely makes the game a lot of fun. You guys got to check this out. MuseOnStore.com is where all their great stuff is there. They've got the Games and Gear brushes over there too and everything. It looks fantastic. So good stuff. Great stuff.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Also, you should check out our spray template. That's pretty new, which is really cool. It's a spray template that's got magnets in it so that it's a 6-inch spray, an 8-inch spray, or a 10-inch spray.
Oh, nice.
You can take it apart.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep. And it's very much done in an anime style because we love it. So we're just like, yeah, this is going to be all Dragon Ball Z. I was trying to get him to put a little Goku at the end of it.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it now. That's awesome. It is like little flames. That's fantastic. That is so cool. Oh, very cool stuff. Yeah, now I got to go shopping. So I better let John go so I can go shop on his website. All right, cool. Well, John, thanks again so much. We really appreciate you taking the time and
John,
from all your
thanks
busy
for
podcasting
sharing.
to join our little show. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, I'll tell you, and I was telling Russ this earlier, and I think I've told you this before, Craig. It's just an honor to be with you guys because you're, in a lot of ways, sort of the grandfathers of podcasting. I know that I started podcasting because I listened to you guys, and I was like, well, I think we could maybe do this. Like, it seems to be popular or whatever, and I used to listen to you guys every other week. Or I think it was every other week.
Yeah, pretty much. Bi-weekly. That's the thing.
Yep. Yeah, and it was great. I mean, you cost me a ton of money. I bought all kinds of stuff. I never regretted any of it, but my wife would be like, "Oh my gosh, what did you buy this week?" You know.
Our bad.
But yeah.
Well, it's very kind,
no,
John. Thank you so much.
Very nice to hear.
Very nice to hear, and it's always good to know that the D6 Generation, the podcast that makes you think, I could do that.
Yep.
All right. John, thanks again, man. Have a great week, and I hope to see you across the Warmachine table sometime in the near future.
I will make it a point to play a game with you sometime.
All right. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This Jebber Notice is brought to you by all of our fine patrons over at Patreon. These are the folks that help us keep the lights on, give us questions for interviews, give us ideas for shows, and just in general take part in the madness that is the not-too-horrible podcast, the D6 Generation. Today in particular, I would like to thank William Boatman, Andrew Glassop, Andrew Gilmartin, Mahmoud Al-Mahmoud, and, again in specific particular, Jason McFarlane, who pointed out that there was a massive error in my data collection technique for Patreon patrons. So, thank you, Jason. You were absolutely right. I did find a massive error, and now I have a big, massive new list of everyone, including last names, for the most part, so that's awesome. So thank you very much. And thanks to all of you, especially those of you who make it to this, the very end of the show, barring a blooper at the end. Did you ever notice how annoying some people can be when they cry the woe is me? Well, I'm gonna do it. Woe is me. I have a tale of woe that I would like to share with you. It intertwines really with gaming in general. And some history. Eric Beeson, hi Eric, is another Patreon, and a local friend of the show, and gamer and friend. And, Eric emailed me a few weeks ago, actually, 2 days after the Sherpa, Jeremy, another local friend of the show that old-time listeners will be familiar with, had emailed me also, telling me about a new game that was coming out this July called Frostgrave. And, I was like, Frostgrave, I don't know. I started looking into it. And then, as too often happens with me, I got all fixated on it and found every piece of information online I could find, found all the pictures of the miniatures that were coming out. So basically, it's a very small model count. You're capped at 10. Fantasy skirmish game. And it's being put out by Osprey, and I did not think, because it's not the feature focus of this particular topic, I did not think to, you know what, I'm gonna go get it. And I'm back. So it is Frostgrave by Osprey Publishing, and it is written and designed by Joseph A. McCullough, who goes by Joe. And it is coming with a new line of miniatures by Nick Ayer's North Star military figures, which is it's got a whole bunch of wizard and apprentice models and a really cool pack of plastic modular soldier men-at-arms types. So anyway, it's a really cool looking game. It's very small skirmish. It's reminding everybody of Mordheim. It takes place in a ruined city. Really, really, really caught the imagination of all of our local guys here, which was very cool, because it hasn't happened in a long time that so many of the local guys have jumped in early on. And Amazon had a deal where you could get the rulebook for $13, hardcover rulebook, over 100, I think it's over 130 pages, full color, glossy. Looks beautiful in all the reviews that I've seen, with a particular thanks to What Would Patton Do, Outpost Zero, and Scott, who I just went to. He's got a great review with screen pictures of the book and everything, and a battle report. So one of the many places I went to find info, but most specifically where I just went to look at the cover of the book, so I could tell who actually wrote it. It looks great. It looks like it could be a lot of fun, relatively simple, and yet at the same time it's got like this really cool magic system. It appears. I mean, I won't be getting my... Anyway, so Amazon's got this awesome thing. Pre-order it, $13. It gets to you on the day that it gets released, which happens to be 2 days from now. So everybody's super excited. It plays on a 2x2, 3x3, or 4x4 table, depending on how many people are playing. And, as I said, it's a ruined city, so that's awesome. So I have, a Zuzzy mat that was a cobblestone mat that I got before, I kind of fell off the Malifaux wagon, and haven't used it since, because I got a bunch of terrain from Malifaux, including the mat, and then fell off the wagon. Actually, those of you who know how long it takes to get a Zuzzy mat, I ordered the Zuzzy mat and it had fallen off months before the mat even showed up. So I don't even think I have taken it out of the box. So I'm all looking forward to that. Now the key is, however, how this ties in with Malifaux. When Malifaux came out, Daka Daka was a young, growing, burgeoning store that Russ and John had just, they were just cranking through. They had idea after idea after idea. We were making table after table. And they were like, okay, we want to make a really cool table for Mordheim. And it's going to be a dedicated table. And Mordheim, for those of you who don't know, was a GW skirmish game that fantasy skirmish game that took place in a ruined city. And so the terrain was very specific. It was ruined, sort of Victorian-ish, Elizabethan-ish, which is, I know, two totally different things. Gothic-ish, buildings totally ruined and ransacked and all that sort of terrible thing. So I set out to make a table, and it was one of possibly my favorite table that I've ever made. I think it had 14 different buildings on it. Each one was a character study. Many of them were inspired by things I'd seen all over the world. There was a giant round temple. There was a chaos temple off to the side that had shattered stained glass windows in it. There was a giant watchtower. There was a huge manor house that was all shattered so you could see inside. You could move your model inside. There was a river that went down through the side, and then a smaller canal that went across the table with bridges. I made a boat. I got a model of the Mayflower, actually, and I blew it out, and I rebuilt the stern and the deck, and made it so that it was like a little one-masted ship that was 28 millimeter. And I cut that at the water level, so it was floating in the water. I had like a giant fort that I built that was floating on barrels in the water. I loved it. I was so proud of this city. So now we're gonna play in this ruined city, and I'm thinking, oh man, that would be so cool if we knew where that table was. But see, here's the problem. As in any great historical era where a great empire falls, there's a lot of chaos and confusion that results. So when Daka fell, it first was sold to a really good local friend of ours who made a going concern of it. I think he lasted like a year. And part of the deal was all of the terrain. So all of my terrain was sort of bequeathed to another friend, so that was cool. I was okay with that. Then it was sold to another gentleman who wasn't really part of our gaming circle. And I don't know why, but for some reason I was not actually going to the store at that point. So something had happened where I wasn't doing a lot of gaming during that last transitional period. And so the man who bought the store and all the contents and the terrain and everything couldn't afford to maintain the massive Daka complex that John and Russ had started. So he moved the store and all of its contents to a much smaller storefront, which included moving all the terrain, of course, and they didn't have room for all the terrain, of course. And Malifaux, Mordheim was no longer really a game that anybody was playing. So my amazingly beautiful Mordheim board ended up in the basement. And that store really only lasted a few months before it folded completely. And all of my stuff just disappeared. Now, like, I wasn't in a position to be able to afford to buy any of it back because it would have cost me a fortune, which is another irony, but we'll leave that alone. But I didn't think too much of it. I was like, kind of sandcastle. I built it, the tides of time came and washed it away, whatever. And then we were playing at a local game store around here that longtime listeners would remember, the Game Castle. And the Game Castle, all of a sudden, a couple of my tables from Daka Daka just suddenly appeared at the Game Castle. And nobody, we didn't have a really good relationship with the owner of the game castle. He's a very nice guy. We just, we weren't in the in crowd, so to speak. So there, like we did a little digging, and we're never able to figure out how these tables of mine that I made, I didn't own them, how they ended up at the game castle. But I have to assume that somewhere out there, either some heartless person threw away all of those amazing buildings, or they exist somewhere out there. And I was like, oh my god, it would be so cool, even if I could just have 4 or 5 of them to put on a 3x3 table. Alas, it is not meant to be. Those of you who are interested in seeing it, and in my head, the pictures don't really stand up to my memory, which is sad. But Sherpa, Jeremy, went and found on the Wayback Machine, which I don't even know how to work on the internet, he found an old article that Russ had put up when DACA was just getting started as a website / store. Well, the website must have been there for a while because it started before the store. But anyway, there's pictures of a bunch of the different buildings. Sadly, not the ones that I would really like to recreate. But anyway, so that's a little insight into my life over the last few days, where I was in Maine when all this excitement erupted. So I couldn't even go through my minis. Another great thing about Frostgrave is that you can use any models you want, right? So you can use Bones miniatures, which is what a lot of these local guys are going to do. And I went through, and there's Wandering Monsters. How can you go wrong with that? So between Bones 1 and 2, some of which I own and some of which I'm going to have to acquire probably at Gen Con, almost all the Wandering Monsters are in there somewhere. So just super, super, super excited. Probably going to end up building more ruined buildings. I'm going to wait though till I get the rule book on Tuesday, and then start looking through their artwork, because their buildings are probably not going to be that sort of medievally, that Elizabethan-y, Warhammer 40,000-esque sort of feel to them. So, anyway, rambled on far too long on this topic. Woe is me. Thank you for listening, and good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. And hey, I replaced tonight's blooper with a little public service message. Hope you don't mind, but just wanted to remind everyone that Extra Life is getting a little closer. I know everybody's excited about Gen Con right now, and honestly we are too, but the big event after that is, of course, Extra Life. And just wanted to remind you guys why I do Extra Life every year. Extra Life is a fantastic event created by gamers for gamers, started from the great guys over at Sarcastic Gamer podcast, and they were mostly about video games, and it turned into a marathon pledge drive, kind of like walkathons and marchathons, but it's a game-a-thon, and it originally started with video games, but now it's expanded to board games. And what's awesome about Extra Life is that every dollar pledged, every dollar raised, goes to the hospital of the participant's choice, the Children's Hospital, to help support that hospital, to get things in the hospital for kids to do to help the hospital support the children they take care of there. And my personal favorite hospital that I support is Boston Children's Hospital. And the reason I support them is I have a very personal connection there. My youngest daughter, Kit, when she was very, very young, she had chronic asthma. She still does. Had a very, very severe chronic asthma attack. My local hospital up here in New Hampshire couldn't help. Rushed her down to Boston Children's. It was one of those moments. There is really no scarier moment for a parent than to have your child in a bed in a hospital and look at them and know there's nothing you can do to help them. And Boston Children's Hospital, I'm convinced, literally saved my daughter's life. So this is just something I can do in a little way to help them, to pay back for all they did for me and for all they do for hundreds, thousands, and literally millions of kids around the world at these great, great hospitals. And so if you could help, if you don't have the time to do this, and I totally get that, it's a busy world and want to pledge just a little bit of money to either Craig or myself, head on over to extra-life.org, and you can search for the player. You can type in the D6 Generation and see our team and choose to pledge to one of our team members, Craig, myself, and we got a brand new team member too. Wanted to give a shout out to Jeremy Haugen. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining the team. He's already raised some money too. Good job, Jeremy. So if you want to pledge to Craig, myself, or Jeremy, or if you yourself are running an event and you want to join the D6G team to help just show your support for the show and help, more importantly, show your support for Extra Life and the Children's Hospital of your choice. So please, if you can participate, awesome. And if you cannot participate personally, please just whatever you can, a couple bucks, whatever you want to pledge to Craig or myself for the event, we'd really, really appreciate it. And it does go to a fantastic cause. Every dollar, not just 90%, not just 8%, 100% of the dollars you donate go to help those children's hospitals. And we think that's fantastic. And it really is playing games and healing kids. So check it all out, extra-life.org. And thanks again, guys, for listening. I really appreciate it.